Woo! What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another live edition of the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your main man, Clint. This show is brought to you by odds.com. Do me a favor, first and foremost, if you are hanging out in my chat room, if you are on my YouTube channel at Die Hard MMA Pod, head on over to Odds HQ. They are the ones sponsoring this show. Make sure you subscribe to them. Give me a big thumbs up no matter which channel you're on. And if you're on Odds YouTube channel, head on over to your boys. Show me some love. Give me a sub over there as well. How's everybody doing? We are coming off of a great night of fights. The worst card in UFC history turned out to be one of the most fun spectacles entertainment-wise, and we cashed on some action. We made some money. Nothing feels better than coming onto the podcast after having a winning week and seeing all the tweets of people that tailed and made that cash. Oh, that makes me feel good. What is up, everybody? My boy Boston Nick in the chat. That's right, we killed it this week, buddy. Billy Big Balls, my man, saying he's working, missing the show, but you will catch it later on replay, I am sure, my friend. Thank you so much. Happy to hear that you cashed. Muay Thai being goofy as ever in the chat. I'm not going to link your comments there, buddy. Tim Topher, Charles Rosa, Boston Strong getting it done, and 9-1 on the picks. Congratulations, my man. I hope you had a parlay in there because that would have done some damage. How's everybody doing? Brandon, welcome to the chat. What's good? Robert, my other Brandon. Bufo on the beat. Buddy, what's going on? Thank you for joining the chat. I appreciate it. My man, Michael Lunday. I've got to give another shout out to my guy, Michael Lunday. He is always supporting the podcast. I appreciate you and your tip, my friend, which leads me right into a little segment here I've got to give. If you like the show, if you like the content that I'm providing to you and you want to support the show, or if you tailed me on some of my action and you made a fat chunk, tips and donations are always appreciated. I'm a one-man show over here. I work my ass off, never charging you for anything and bringing you all my information, leans, bets, and everything for free, as always, every week. So much appreciated, my friend. Thank you very much. Michael Mason, any max bets this week? There might just be one. There might just be one. We will get to it. I've already tweeted it out, so it's locked in and ready to go. I will break it down as we get on the show. MMA Punch, what is up? Jamie Tran, thank you very much for getting in here. And it is the first fight ever where 3 consecutive fights went under 2 minutes. Just unreal that last week we had the first 3 fights in a row that were less than a minute apiece. Insane start to the night. Cynthia, thank you for joining us. What's up? Welcome into the chat. Let's go. I am so pumped up. I'm ready to dig into this thing. I want to give a shout out one more time to odds.com, Odds HQ. Be sure you head on over to their channel and subscribe to them. Without them, this show would not be nearly what it is today. So thank them very much and give them a little bit of love. Let's recap UFC I versus Calvillo, because we have got a lot to talk about, and this week's card is extremely interesting. So in the attempt to keep this show short, which I know never happens, I say it every week, I try, and it just never happens because I love my fights and I can't help myself. I'm going to try and keep the recap a little brief this time around just to make sure we have more time to break down the actual fights. How's that sound? I'm hoping that works for everybody, so let's dig into this thing. Like we talked about, the first 3 fights flew by. I mean, under 2 minutes for the first 3 fights of a card, first time in UFC history. We had Anthony Ivy versus Christian Aguilera, and this is one that I tried to tell everybody, anybody that would listen. All I ever heard was Ivy, 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 Ivy. If you cashed betting the dog against, if you cashed in on Aguilera going against Ivy, congratulations. You made some sweet cash. However, if you were on the Ivy train, I tried to warn everybody. These are 2 guys who are untested at the UFC level, 2 guys that we simply don't know whether or not they belong here. And when you get guys like that in the cage, weird stuff happens. Ivy was supposed to be a short notice replacement last week, and the UFC was kind enough to honor their agreement with him and give them a fight. And they gave him a guy who has been borderline almost getting his UFC shot for quite some time now. So anything can happen in that kind of a situation. And sure enough, he gets dropped and knocked out quick. That's one of those dodging bullets situations. I love using the GIF from The Matrix with Neo getting out of the way of that kind of stuff, because hey, in this game, a penny saved is a penny earned. If you're not losing money firing bets on stuff like that, that's money you get to keep in your pocket for later. So we did a good job of avoiding that. I know some people cashed in on Aguilera. Congratulations if you did. I am so happy I stayed clear away from Ivy. It did bust my Hail Mary parlay where I throw $5 down and try and bet every single card on the fight correctly, though. So that one shit the bed early. Anyway, second fight of the night. This was my late play. This was the one that I was struggling so hard with. Tyson Nam. He got a late short notice replacement in Adashev, and this guy, he opens up at plus 175, and it was a landslide, an absolute landslide of money, forcing it down to even money. I couldn't believe it. So, I mean, we got to the point, I'm looking at this thing going minus 125 on a UFC caliber fighter, a guy who's fought super high levels of talent, a guy who, even though he has his faults, has serious bomb potential power against a smaller fighter who's coming in on 2 days' notice, who doesn't have a full camp behind him. And I watched the dude's tape. He's a good striker, but he's a wild man. Like, that's just going to open opportunities for Nam to land a shot. And I lamented over it. I did not want to make that bet. But something I always say is that sometimes the best bets you can possibly make are the hardest ones to pull the trigger. I had struggled, but I couldn't turn down Nam at minus 125 after all that action came in the other way. And sure enough, that's why we do that shit. Because Nam comes out and blasts him in the head, absolutely destroys him in a matter of seconds. Welcome to the UFC, buddy. Love that kind of stuff. Scott C, what's going on? You are more than welcome, my friend. And Brandon, man, it's probably the favorite, right? Recap goes over an hour is minus 150. Sports Gambling Daily. What's up, buddy? Welcome into the show. Hold'em, thank you, my friend. Welcome and thanks for hanging out. Wiggle Time Bobby hit a 4-leg. Beautiful. That is some fun stuff. All right, let's keep it rolling. So then we get our next fight, Julia Avila versus Gina Mazzani. This is another one that I was high on all week. Tried to tell everybody we want to make sure we're on the side of Avila, take her inside the distance, and we weren't the only ones thinking that. Big line here, but I wasn't expecting her to get it done in 20 seconds. I thought that Gina Mazzani was going to be a little more durable than that. I thought she was going to put up a little bit more of a fight than that, but holy crap. The Raging Panda rolls out here and just wrecks her. The funniest thing about all this is after these 3 fights happen, I look over at the clock. We started the show an hour late, right? The fights usually kick off at 3 p.m., and they kicked off at 4 because we lost a fight, and it's like 20 minutes in. I'm like, you've got like an hour left. You've got 40 minutes left to burn, and you've got 1 fight left on the preliminary card. I was cracking up. They did a pretty good job of filling that airtime, but it gave me a little chance to wiggle around and get some stuff done because we really didn't have to watch much of anything at that point. So the main fight for the preliminary card, Merab Vashvili also getting a short notice replacement in Gustavo Lopez. He wins a unanimous, easy 15-minute decision. And I got to tell you, though, I was impressed by Lopez. Lopez had some good wrestling. He had some good scrambling. He had some pop on his punches. He was in there. I would love to see Lopez on a full camp and see what that kid would be capable of if he had the opportunity to do the whole thing. That is going to be someone to keep an eye out for moving forward. But Merab, the Machine, is just the ultimate nickname for this guy. You can't stop him. It is unreal what he is capable of. I'm very curious to see what the upper limit for Merab is going to be, because dude is an absolute monster. Timothy's in love with Avila. Can't blame you there. Definitely. Thank you, Wiggle Time Bobby, my friend. I appreciate it. Nick, somebody hit plus 1,600 on Avila inside 60 seconds. Who made that bet? Holy shit. Talk about a score. Because, see, I would have taken Avila in the first round. I never would have taken her inside 60 seconds. Holy crap. What is going on, my friends? Welcome to the show, my boy, Bro Picks. What's up, Justin? How you doing, buddy? We've got some action going this weekend. I know Justin and me have got some picks. We might be agreeing on a few. We might be head-to-head on a few. It's going to be fun. So we move on to the main card here. Maria Agapova taking on Hannah Cifers. And this was the one that I was super, super hyped on. I didn't end up actually pulling the trigger on Agapova. So I'm sorry, I haven't been talking about my bets. We cashed our first bet of the night on Nam. That was easy money, right? We had the parlay that was supposed to be Avila and it was supposed to be Avila and Merab. Merab drops out. The bet basically gets that one with a line drawn through it because he got a new opponent. So I end up with a 2.46 straight bet on Avila at minus 200. Don't quite cash the full unit there, unfortunately, but cash is cash, right? I'll take it. So then we get to Agapova, and I wanted to bet her. I really did. I thought she was going to outclass Hannah Cifers. Didn't expect the submission, though. Didn't see a submission coming. TKO? Sure, definitely. But submission? Nah, never saw that one coming. Very impressive. Very much looking forward to Agapova, and I think the growth on her is something that I got an angle for this week on that. That's going to be something we can talk about here in a little bit. Jordan Espinoza jumps in here. He takes out Mark De La Rosa. Now, this is one that I couldn't pull the trigger on. I couldn't quite get there because Jordan Espinoza shits the bed. He's a bed shitter, all right? Every time I try and take this guy, he ends up losing, but he was just so much more athletic than Mark De La Rosa. And I know a lot of people had bet on Mark De La Rosa at dog odds because they talked about him having the boxing advantage, having the grappling advantage. He's a BJJ black belt. Like, there were a lot of people I know that took that stab, and I just couldn't get there because Jordan Espinoza was going to outclass him as long as he didn't gas out. That was my fear, though. I couldn't pull the trigger on minus 165 because I couldn't trust the guy to go a full 15 minutes. This is one of those hindsight is 2020 bets where I look back on it and I'm like, dang it, man, that was easy. If you played Espinoza, you made some easy cash on that fight. So, you know, that one's a little bit of a regret, but I had reasons for passing, so it is what it is. Andre Touchy-Feely, Charles Jourdain. This is the one that hurt. This is the stab right in the chest here. So I doubled up on this fight, right? I have bought in. I am a Air Jourdain fan. So I've got Charles Jourdain at plus 195, and then I went ahead and bet the under 2.5 at plus 155 because out of all these freaking fights, this is the one that's going to go under, right? Duh. Like, both these guys have submission offense, massive power. They're athletic. They're fast. Pop on the punches. No. They go the full 15 minutes. So Charles Jourdain comes out in round one and blasts Feely, knocks him to the mat, starts laying it into him, ground and pound, and I thought it was over. I absolutely thought we were getting another round one casher. I was going to cash plus 195 on the dog. I was going to cash plus 155 on the under, and I was going to do laps around the living room and jump over the couch and probably break my ankle. I was so stoked. Somehow Feely digs deep. And manages to survive that and then starts to wear on Jourdain in the next couple of rounds. It was very frustrating to watch because we all know Jourdain's weakness is the takedowns. I'm surprised Feely didn't go to the takedown more. And the thing that really pissed me off the most is that when they were trading, Jourdain was actually the one landing. And I got some flack for saying this on Twitter, but I think it's a legitimate point. Andre Touchy-Feely wasn't hitting Jourdain. Even the head kicks. Jourdain blocked everything. His defense was impeccable. It was unreal the amount of shots that Jourdain was able to avoid and block and get away from. And then he was landing clean on Feely. So all props to Feely and that chin. But honestly, I scored round two for Charles Jourdain because for me, when you get a takedown, you got to do something with it. I know not everybody agrees with this. But if you get a takedown and you do nothing with it and your opponent stands right back up, that doesn't mean shit. You didn't control them for 2 minutes and dominate the position in the cage. You didn't land damage or anything like that. You didn't rock them. You didn't knock them to the mat. I just don't think that scores much. And I think there's a lot of judges in the modern day of MMA that agree with me. But apparently we had a panel that scored the takedowns for Feely or just didn't recognize how many shots that Jourdain was blocking. I agree with the judge that scored it for Jourdain. I had it 29-28 for Jourdain because round two definitely could have gone his way. But again, No robbery here. I see you in the chat there, Justin. I see you. No robbery here, buddy. Robbery is a strong word. I can understand why Feely won it. But hey, I always tell you guys, if I'm going to get plus 195, if I'm going to get plus 200 on a coin flip fight, if it's going to go to a split decision and you're letting me flip that 50-50 coin at plus 200, every time. Every time. And the fact that he got the knockdown in round 1 and almost closed the show to cash the under, I mean, I have no problem taking those shots that I took. It was a bummer that they didn't come in, but we were this close on both of them. So super happy about that. Right before we get to the final 3 fights of the night, I want to take a short little break here. Once again, thank our sponsor, odds.com, for the show. If you're hanging out in my YouTube channel in the chat room, if you wouldn't mind, migrate on over to Odds HQ, give them a like. Subscribe to Odds HQ, because now that the mainline sports are all coming back, we're going to be covering everything. You can always find the Die Hard MMA podcast over on my YouTube channel, but we do a whole bunch of content. I've got the MMA roundtable with my boys, Jimmy the Bag, Mo Scream, Boston Nick. We're going to be doing that live tomorrow, and that's going to be on Odds HQ. So make sure you come subscribe to us over there. Now, this was the one that was interesting. So Charles Boston Strong Rosa takes on Kevin Aguilar. And this is exactly like Espinoza versus De La Rosa for me. I was looking at this one and going, I like Aguilar. He's got everything I want here. But I can't lay minus 180. I can't lay minus 180. And I'm sitting here like lamenting over it. And I'm like, Aguilar wins this. He's got the takedown defense. He's got the striking advantage. If Charles Rosa can't get it to the mat, then Aguilar is just going to destroy him on the feet all day. Why can't I pull the trigger? Why can't I? It's that little spider sense, that little tingling in the back there that you got to trust that as a gambler. And that's what happened here. Freaking Charles Rosa shows up and outstrikes Aguilar. He has a left hand that just connects over and over and over. I was live with the boys over at the Pub Sports Radio, which check them out, by the way. They're fun. We're watching this, and they bet on Aguilar. I backed up the bet because I thought he was going to win. I didn't actually take it, but I backed up the pick, and it was infuriating to watch this guy who has a striking advantage get hit with the same punch all night long. It was unreal that he didn't make any adjustments and didn't move whatsoever to stop the onslaught coming the way, coming from Charles Rosa. It was so frustrating. So I feel bad if you had money on Kevin Aguilar, because he could have and realistically should have won that fight. But if you were on the Rosa side of things, congratulations. Great underdog cash. Great bet. And I'm happy to see people make some money. And honestly, he's a likable guy. I'm happy to see him get back in the win column. Gas Station Sushi, my man. Smash the like button. What's up, my friend? Hopefully I can pay you back for all those horse betting winners that you give out to people on Jimmy's show constantly. And bro picks, get out of here. Get out of here. All right, Connor, my buddy, what is going on? Thank you, my friend. I appreciate the support. Same stream on 2 different channels. Pav, yep, that's what we're doing. So odds.com has sponsored me. They've sponsored the Die Hard MMA podcast. So I still have my own YouTube channel, and all my videos are going to be on my YouTube channel. I'm actually streaming live on my Periscope and my Twitch. So if you're tuning in on those platforms, welcome to the show, folks. But basically, it's going to be simul streaming. That way, if you're following me here or if you're following odds.com, you'll get the show either way. But they have access to the video feed in the show now because they're officially my sponsors. They like to chop the video up and, break it into individual fight breakdowns throughout the week and stuff like that. It's just a good setup for us. It's working out really well. So if you wouldn't mind, show us both a little bit of love. And my guy, Sports Gambling Daily, doing the Lord's work, my friend. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So co-main event, Carl Robertson versus Marvin Vettori. This is the fight that everybody was talking about. This is the one that everyone wanted to be the main event. It had the heat behind it, had the personal angle behind it, the vengeance, the missing of the weight, the drama, like holy crap. And did it pay off? They scrambled for that entire first round. I was very impressed with Carl Roberson's ability to scramble out. When he jumped off the cage to get out of that choke, when he forced this thing back to the feet a couple times, it was a phenomenal 4 minutes of fighting. Very sloppy, very entertaining. Both guys going for the kill. I was on the side of Vettori, but I didn't actually bet it. I didn't want to lay that kind of wood, and I knew that Robertson was dangerous. So what I went ahead and did was bet the under 2.5 at plus 180. It was a gift. The bookmakers were like, Christmas came early. I'm so sorry that 2020 has sucked. Here you go. Plus 180. Can you believe that? A guy with absolute devastating power and a guy with submission ability and decent pop on his punches. And you're going to give me plus 180 on the under 2.5 in the small cage. In the small cage. Which, let's address that real quick. Dana White. I love you, Uncle Dana. You're the man. Thank you for bringing us MMA action. Without you, we'd be bored out of our minds. But him telling everybody at the post-press release that the small cage is an illusion. They think that the small cage doesn't matter for these finishes. Folks, the bookie hasn't adjusted yet. These unders are going to keep hitting. And the fact that they keep setting them at 2.5, I love it. Absolutely love it. That being said, later on this week, my second show, MMA Total Madness, I'm going to be breaking down this entire card again from a betting perspective, talking about the overs and unders. So we will touch base on that a little bit later in the week. But it's not an illusion, my friends. The small cage makes a huge difference. Main event time. Before we jump into the main event, I do want to just say, check out our boys over at goatcapitalsports.com. They will have you covered, giving picks, giving reads on everything MMA and otherwise. I've got the MMA covered, but they do baseball, football, basketball with main sports coming back. They're going to have you covered on everything else that you could ever possibly want. And you know what? They are huge fans of me and the show here, big supporters. So if you sign up over at goatcapitalsports.com, tell them Clint sent you. They're actually a pretty good follow on Twitter too. Every once in a while, they throw out a free play, and they do pretty well on those. I cashed on Tiger Woods a couple weeks ago thanks to them just tossing it out on Twitter as a big thank you to everybody. So make sure you give them a follow on Twitter. Sign up for their services if you're interested over at goatcapitalsports.com. The main event, Jessica Eye, Cynthia Calvillo, one that I did my very best to hype up because it really was a solid matchup. It was a fun fight, and these girls' skills matched up very, very well. We ended up having a double hammer bet on Cynthia Calvillo, and that's never something that I expected to say. When I looked at this fight, I leaned Calvillo. I broke it down and I was like, I think she's going to cause problems for Eye. She's going to have the wrestling ability. We're in the small cage. Her hands are faster, and she's been improving. She's training at AKA. I liked everything I saw from Calvillo. And I saw so many people on Jessica Eye. It honestly made me a little bit nervous, but it was another one of those bets that I just had to make. So I'm sitting there watching, and I end up getting plus 105. So I locked that up. I'm like, all right, like at least if I'm wrong, I've got plus odds. I'm not laying chalk, and this is a coin flip fight. So I feel okay about my decision there. Well, then we get to the weigh-in fiasco. I comes in overweight. I comes in struggling to step off the cage because she's in such bad shape trying to cut the weight. I listened to a interview with Calvillo talking about how she wants to close out the show. She wants to finish the fight instead of letting it go to the judges. And then on top of that, she talks about the changes that she had made and the fact that I took the fight kind of late notice. I'm like, okay, all these things are music to my ears. And I know you can't believe everything that fighters say, but these two women wear their hearts on their sleeves. They're not playing mind games. They're telling you what's up. So I immediately went back. I checked the line, and it had drifted to minus 110, a straight pick 'em, and I had to double down. I absolutely had to double down. I was like, Calvillo is the side. She's got all the advantages here. Unless Jessica Eye shows up and is just monstrously more powerful, which I don't see happening, we should be good to go. And we cashed that shit. That is what I'm talking about. We had a two-banger on the main event, and watching Cynthia Calvillo wrestle and maul Jessica Eye, take back position, and just work her over was phenomenal. I know a lot of people might have thought that was a boring 5-round main event, but when you've got 2 units straight on the winning fighter that's dominating the other one, oh, that was fun. Incredibly entertaining. I thought she was going to get a late submission finish or even a TKO, but it seemed like she was running a little low on gas, wrestling the bigger girl herself. Either way, good, solid night. We ended up going 4-2 on straight picks, one of those being the two-banger on the main event, and I want to say plus 3.65 units, something along those lines. So good, solid night, folks. We are sitting pretty right about now on the podcast. So starting in 2020, I went on the worst run that I've ever had betting, and I dug myself a nice big fat hole. I was 15 units in the hole, and we have chopped that in half. We are only down 7.8 units right now for 2020. We are heating up. We are getting ready to streak And the goal is to go positive 20 units on the flip side of this thing by the end of 2020. So we still have some work to do. Speaking of work to do, let's talk about the fight card. We've got a good one coming up this weekend, and it's really hilarious because on paper, this fight is going to be better than last week all around the board, right? Everyone's talking about how bad last week's card was, how shit it was. You can't have women headlining, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a lot of matchups on this card that could go the distance and be boring. So just, you heard it here. If you're expecting fireworks this week when compared to last week, temper that expectation just a little bit. There's a decent shot at a lot of these fights go the full 15 minutes. So, all right, Timothy, I didn't see that. Dana says they're going back to the 30-foot cage for Fight Island. Doesn't really surprise me, but I did not hear that. So good to know. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Always supporting the odds fam. Thank you very much, Marty. I appreciate you. Eddie, what's up, buddy? Burgos? ? We will find out. And Pav, I see your comment here. Thank you, buddy. Really pick your poison. Not a big deal either way. I like to ask everybody to go subscribe over at Odds HQ. As long as you're subscribed to both channels, so the other shows in the week get your attention, that's really what we're looking for here. All right. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all. I'm getting caught up on the comments here before we get into the new one. Title fights in small cage kind of sucks. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I guess it depends on who the title fight is, especially if we're talking about the smaller fighters. Small cage doesn't matter as much, in my opinion. The bigger fighters, the heavyweights, the light heavyweights, yeah, that probably limits things a little bit. Gas station sushi. Buddy, this means the world coming from you. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate those kind words. And yeah, I wasn't the only one that saw the opportunity on Calvillo when I came in trouble. I had to lay down as much as I possibly could, as quickly as I possibly could right after the weigh-ins. And that's why you should always keep an eye out on Fridays, because I do a weigh-in recap show where I give all my thoughts after the fighters weigh in on Fridays. And there's a lot of times where we lock in these kind of late 10th hour bets, and there's some value to be had for sure. So, all right, I think we are about caught up. We are ready to go. Thank you very much. Please say you ain't using these info, brother. No. Not using it. Just using it for the fight names here. Trust me, it'll all work out together. Thank you, everybody, for jumping into the show. I appreciate you all joining me here. Let's break down UFC Vegas 3. We have got a banger this evening. All right, first fight of the night. Now, it shows Joe Solecki taking on Austin Hubbard. However, Joe Solecki has dropped out of this fight. He is instead going to be replaced by Max Volkov. It's spelled Rohskopf. No freaking clue how to pronounce that. We're going to call him Max, shall we? So Max is stepping in on short notice, and he is taking on Austin Hubbard. This is a very, very strange fight to me. So when I broke down the fight, I was tape studying for Joe Solecki, Austin Hubbard. That was going to be an absolute banger. Great night of fights. You know what I mean? It was going to be a fantastic matchup between young up-and-comers, and I was very, very interested in the Hubbard side. Wasn't ready to pull the trigger yet, but he was the dog, and I was getting close. I was thinking about it. Now that Max steps up, I'm very confused. So Max, I did my research, did my homework, I did my Instagram stalking, like I always do. You got to. He's a two-time NCAA qualifier in wrestling, 2015, 2016. He was a ACC champion in wrestling in 2016 at 165. He's a natural 155-pound fighter. He fights at 155, and he is 5-0 with all 5 wins coming by submission. However, on 6/9, so just 6 days ago, he tossed out a tweet that he hasn't been able to train for 2 weeks because of an injury that's been bothering him. And then just a day or two later, he accepted the call to the UFC. I believe that tweet has been deleted since. So very, very interesting. He is shooting his shot here, but there's a decent chance he's coming off the couch. And he's coming up a weight class on short notice as well. He's got a good stiff right hand. This kid is physically built. He's a brick shit house. So at 155, he does look like a monster, and he's going to have about an inch of height on Hubbard, so he will look like the taller man in there, but I think he's going to be the slimmer man as well. He's a submission machine. This kid chains submission and wrestling attacks constantly. So if he gets you on the mat, you could very much be in trouble. However, the fight that I saw him in, his most recent couple of fights I couldn't find. They haven't been released by the promotion yet because they were just earlier this year. But in 2019, he fought for FFC 35 against Omar, and it was a first-round submission win, but he is very much submission over position. You always hear about people talking about submission over position versus position over submission. If you don't know about the wrestling game or the ground game, jiu-jitsu, if you're new to MMA, welcome to the show. That's what we love to hear. Basically, what that means is you want to establish your dominant position on top of your opponent before you try to take them out. Because if you don't, you can leave yourself open to counters, reversals, whatever. Well, this kid does exactly that. He dives on his submission attempts, and he scrambles all over the place with his opponent because he never let himself get locked down in a position. He was just confident in the fact that he would be able to get out of a bad place if he got put in a bad spot, but it led to him ending up on bottom several times throughout this fight. Something young fighters will do, but remember, he's taking a big step up to the UFC level in this case. He's got a strong wrestling base. We know that already, but that's basically all this kid has got. I didn't see anything as far as his striking goes. Like I said, he's got a stiff right hand, but his opponent was also kind of a low-level grappler. I'm not impressed with his level of competition whatsoever, and he's getting a very, very short notice call up here against a very skilled fighter in Austin Hubbard. So Hubbard, on the flip side of this thing, he's 28 years old, so he's now just kind of getting into his prime years as well, which is something you like to see. He's 11-14, 4 wins by KO, 2 by submission, 5 by decision. He's only been finished once in his UFC career, or I'm sorry, his MMA career, and that was by submission back in the day. Let me see, 2016. All right, and he trains out of Elevation Fight Team with Curtis Blaydes, with guys like Neil Magny, with guys like Justin Gaethje. I mean, he comes from a phenomenal team of streaking fighters right now that are just on the up and up, which is something I love to see. The fact that one of his main training partners is on the card and main eventing, you got to think these guys are ready to go and peaking at the same time. He has great side-to-side footwork. He attacks with good leg kicks. He has these big step-in knees that you really saw shine in his last fight with Marco Madsen, and he cuts beautiful angles. He feints well with his hands. He's got good head movement, and he has a very, very strong ability to work back to his feet. Hubbard, somebody doesn't like Hubbard. So he's 1-2 in the UFC, and that doesn't sound impressive, but his UFC debut was Davi freaking Ramos. If you know the UFC at all, you know the name Davi Ramos, one of the strongest, most dangerous grapplers the UFC has to offer. Built like a brick shithouse, just a world-class talent. And that's your first fight in the UFC? Are you kidding me? This kid manages to go all 15 minutes. He took some big shots. He got taken down 3 times. He didn't get submitted, and he made it all the way to the judges' scorecards. That impressed me. In a loss, he impressed me. Then he bounces back against Kyle Prepelic, where he showed off his ability to have offensive wrestling himself. He actually ended up sealing that fight by taking down Prepelic in the second and third rounds after kind of a banger of a first round where he ate some big shots, showing me that not only can he strike well, but he can shift gears. And he can grapple well enough at the UFC level to beat an opponent that's a worthy challenger. So he wins a 15-minute decision with Kyle Prepelic. And then his last fight, earlier this year in 2020, he takes on Marco Madsen, an Olympian, a wrestling Greco-Olympic medal winner. And he gets mauled for 2 rounds. But every single time he gets taken down, he gets back to his feet. He made Marco Madsen work harder than I've seen that guy work in his entire career. And it was apparent how good his striking was. And then when they got to round 3, you would think this guy being ragdolled for 2 straight rounds, he'd be out of gas and just trying to get to the final bell. No, he put it on Marco Madsen in the 3rd round. His gas tank is unreal for a guy. I mean, you got to think that comes from elevation, right? These grapplers that he trains with, like Neil Magny, like Curtis Blaydes, taking him down over and over and over. That's what those guys are best at. So if he can get up from guys like that constantly and then he still have gas in the tank to go for the knockout, I love that. That's a great sign to me. So I basically love everything that Hubbard is bringing to the table. And what we see, if we jump on over here to best fight odds, is right now, the opening line on this was a pick'em. Max has been bet all the way down to -165. People are losing their minds betting on this kid Max. And I've got a couple of angles that I like to take. Now, for those of you that are new to the show, I know we've got a lot of new viewers tonight. First off, thank you for tuning in. But second, I'm not a professional bettor, okay? So I don't have a spreadsheet with power rankings of MMA fighters. I watch a lot of tape study. I've done some training myself. The knowledge is all up here. There's a couple angles I like to take. I like fading people who are stepping up in competition. So if you're taking that first pop up, either from being an unranked guy to fighting ranked people, or from a non-UFC fight to your first UFC fight, if you're fighting the right opponent, I like to bet against you because it's very, very difficult to do. There's an adrenaline dump. There's extra pressure. You're under the bright lights. And just being exposed to a new level of talent is always going to be something that's a bit of an issue. So this kid is making his UFC debut, and he's got 5 fights so far to his name. One time he has been to the second round. Every single other one of his fights, he's finished by first round submission. And the fight that got to the second round, he finished by second round submission. Now let's take a look at his opponents just to get an idea of the level of opposition that he's been facing on the regional scene, because sometimes they fight regional fighters that are absolute monsters and it doesn't matter, right? Well, we've got a 6-6 record. We have a 14-9 record. We have a 1-1 record. We have a 6-1 record. And we have a 2-2 record. Those are the guys that he's fought. So most of them are 500 fighters, and only one of them had a respectable record out of that entire group. None of them are in big shows. None of them are in big organizations. He's a regional scene hero, and maybe this kid is going to be UFC caliber. Maybe. But we have no idea what he can do on the feet. And we have Austin Hubbard, who is able to survive grappling against Davi Ramos, who's a incredibly high Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt level grappler, and then Marco Madsen, who is an Olympic caliber grappler. And you're telling me that we're going to get plus 140 on that kid? So what I'm going to do right now, folks, I'm not going to make that an official pick. I have a very strong lean to Austin Hubbard, and I'm going to sit tight, because everybody and their mother right now seems to be super excited about this kid, Max, and I think that line is going to get wider. For whatever reason, I think people are looking at Austin Hubbard and going, oh, he's 1-2 in the UFC. He's 1-2 against extremely solid talent and bad matchups for him, and he's survived all of them. Max, that is basically discount Joe Selecki. So the guy that he was preparing for has a skill set very similar to the kid that is filling in for him. He's just got a whole ton less experience. On top of that, the kid's coming up a weight class. On top of that, the kid's coming in on short notice. On top of that, the kid probably hasn't trained the last couple of weeks because he may have an injury. I don't know how everybody is so sold on this guy, but I'm going to have to take that bet the other way. I'm going to wait for this line to get a little bit better. If anybody else gets smart to this thing and the line starts to dip back the other way, I'm probably going to take that 135 on Hubbard. Let me get caught up here on some of these comments. We got Skywalker in the chat. What's up, buddy? Thank you very much. Coco Bongo, what is up? See, Pav, right there. Max going to win. Tell me why. Tell me why Max is going to win. I see no proof. Darvin, the other guy's fine. Oh, yep. You are right, my friend. Welcome to the chat. Thank you very much. Stank. I love you too, my friend. Thank you very much for the support. How is everybody doing? We are peaking right now at 85 live viewers. Thank you all so much for tuning into the show. I appreciate you all very, very much. Here on the Die Hard MMA podcast, we are all about positivity, supporting each other, having a good time. No pissing contests here. So let's move right along, shall we? We have got Roxanne Modafferi taking on Lauren Murphy in the second fight of the night. And this is a fight that I think should be a little bit higher on the card. I feel like Roxanne has earned that honor. So a little bit bummed to see her this early, but you know what? Is what it is. Murphy is 12-4 against Roxanne's 24-16. And if you recall, I just spoke about level and competition and experience differences. Roxanne has fought the who's who of women's MMA. She's been around forever. She's absolutely one of my favorite underdogs of all time. And we have cashed some incredibly large prices with her. In her most recent fight, she derailed the hype train that is the future, Macy Barber, and took her down for 15 straight minutes and cashed as like a plus 700 underdog. I'm so pissed off that I wasn't on it. I bought into Macy and I missed my opportunity. That would have been a phenomenal night. And I know some people that got in on it. So congratulations if you did, but I missed the boat and I'm not missing it this time. So Murphy has a very heavy boxing attack. She's got heavy hands. She's strong in the clinch. She crashes in the pocket. She has a stiff jab, and she's got a really powerful right cross. She brawls. That's what she does. She always tries to turn her fights into a brawl, and she doesn't move her head. Stays right very easily. Roxanne Modafferi on the flip side of this thing has been working nonstop on her striking. She's very improved in that area. She's got good footwork, and she's got very, very awkward movement. She's kind of herky-jerky, reminds me a little bit of Clay Guida, the way he kind of dips and does this thing constantly. A little difficult to get a beat on her. She takes physical conditioning super seriously at this point. I'm so excited about this because for the first time in Roxanne Modafferi's career, she looks like a professional fighter. She's one of the OGs of women's MMA. She is a pioneer of the sport, and she has never looked like a fighter a single day in her life because she never worked out. It was technique, 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 technique constantly. She finally has added the wrinkle of strength and conditioning, and boy, does it show. Roxanne Modafferi is looking like a monster, and I couldn't be happier about that because her whole game plan centers around taking her opponents down and smothering them for 15 minutes and then trying to open up a submission. And that's exactly what I think she's going to do to Murphy here. So this is a spot that at first I kind of looked at and was like, you know what? Murphy's really physically strong. Murphy's got pretty solid takedown defense. I don't know that I want to take Roxanne Modafferi against Lauren Murphy. But then, ladies and gentlemen, when I saw this picture, look at the gun show. Look at my girl, Roxy. I have to take that shot. I absolutely have to take that shot. She has never been this freaking buff in her entire life. And if we're talking about having a strength differential for her to have the opportunity to score a win here, that power is going to do it because this girl has a chin like nothing you've ever seen. She can eat shot after shot, and she just keeps coming. She will never stop, and that's why she's one of my favorite underdogs. I can't call her an underdog this time because she is a slight favorite, but she's got that underdog mentality. She never quits. Always moving forward. She has very good ground and pound that's only been improved in her last couple years. Somehow at the bright old age of 37 years old, Roxanne Modafferi is improving every single time that we see her. She's got good reversals, good back takes, high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, good submission offense. I think she's going to get this fight to the mat, and I don't know if she'll finish Murphy, but I definitely think with that added muscle on her frame, she's going to be able to control Murphy in the majority of this fight and get us a 15-minute decision. So what is the betting line at, you ask? I locked Roxanne Modafferi up at minus 125, and that is currently where it sits. So it's been ping-ponging around. Some money's come in on Roxy, pushed her up to minus 135. It's come back the other way. I don't think this one's going to get too out of control. Murphy coming off a devastating late KO like she did in her fight before her last one, and then beating Andrea KGB Lee in her last fight. I think she's got a little hype surrounding her right now. However, let me poke a little hole in that for you. Andrea KGB won that fight. I'm sorry, but it's true. I had a bet on KGB that night, and she clearly outstruck Murphy for the last 2 rounds, and it was a phenomenal robbery for it to go the way of lucky Lauren Murphy. She was very lucky that night. So I think she should be coming off of a loss here. I think that's going to get made up for. Not that that matters a whole lot because she did fight closely with Andrea Lee, but Andrea Lee also didn't look like herself that night. I think that Roxy's going to be able to chain those takedowns and get a decision win. I am ready to go. I'm rocking with my girl, Roxanne Modafferi. It's an official pick. Me and Tim are going head-to-head a couple times this week. It looks like he's taking that dog money. Going from a minus 700 dog to a minus 150 favorite. Something doesn't seem right. That's a valid point. I mean, the only thing that we can say, though, is that people have been underestimating Roxanne Modafferi her entire career, which is why I've cashed on her as a dog multiple times. I cashed in on her against Antonina Shevchenko when she was a 3-1 underdog because people just didn't understand the matchups and they don't respect the skill set that Roxy brings to the table. Now they are finally noticing what she's capable of, but only after she derailed a hype train. And Murphy has been similarly disrespected her entire career. So I think it's a case where they finally realize that neither of these women should be a super big favorite over the other. And I think a lot of other people out there can't get the fact that Roxanne Modafferi doesn't look like a fighter out of their head. I mean, even my boy Jay over at the Sports Keg calls her a librarian. He doesn't want to bet on her because of the way she looks. And there's so many people out there like that. So, and Elvis, yeah, you said Macy tore her ACL. Yes, Yes, she did, but that doesn't change the fact that Roxanne was hitting those takedowns before she tore her ACL, and I think she was going to continue to be able to do so. She was very tough to hang in there, though. Robert, what's good? Thank you very much. Pav, that may be true. That may be true, but she's still got the skills to pay the bills in this situation. I'm looking forward to it. Coco likes Roxy by decision as well. All right. Loving the back and forth. Keep the chatting up, folks. I'm sorry if I miss your comment. This is by far the most people we have had in the live chat, which I'm very proud of. So thank you so much for tuning in. But if I miss your comment, it's not because I hate your face. It's because they're scrolling by really quickly. And I'm also trying to keep the show under 2 hours for the first time. Yep. Line is coming down on Roxy. I think it's going to bounce back and forth. I think we're going to get it jumping around -120 either side. I wouldn't be surprised if Roxy ends up hitting even money at some point, maybe. But I'm also really bad at reading line movement. That has never been a strength of mine. Next fight of the night, we have got Matt the Steamroller Frevola taking on Frank Camacho. And this is a fight that, once again, I am interested in, but I'm not sure if I'm going to end up pulling the trigger. We've got an interesting matchup between these two guys. Matt Frevola is 8-1. He is definitely the young up-and-comer. He is the plus side here. Frank Camacho is 22-8, another veteran edge and advantage here, and he is 1-3 in his last 4. So he's on a bit of a skid, needs to kind of right the ship if he wants to hang out in the UFC for a bit longer. Frevola's 30 years old, trains out of the Serra-Longo fight team, good gym, high-level grappling. That's basically all they do there. You may remember guys like Chris Weinman coming out of that gym. And what he does is he is a pressure fighter. Constantly stalks forward, heavy top control. His best attributes are on the mat. He scrambles extremely well. He takes his opponent's backs, and he's always hunting for submission. He does have some heavy hands, but he's got relatively basic striking. He does have a decent jab, a good counter right hand, and decent power on the feet. He wings these wild hooks, though. He can get a little loose out there sometimes, and I'm not a huge fan of that. He does mix in leg kicks. However, they don't have much pop on them, and his biggest threat is a choke. If he gets on your neck, he can dive on a front choke, a guillotine. If he gets your back, he's going for that rear naked, and you're in some serious trouble if this guy gets on your back. He can backpack you. Camacho on the flip side of this thing, he's also a pressure fighter. He stalks forward. He's got big power. He's got strong hands. He stays in the pocket tight, good head movement. He doubles up on the jab, which is something that I always talk about. I like to see that. He throws flying knees. He has heavy body kicks. He punches in combination, which is something I like to see. And he's kind of more of a volume striker. Even though he's got some pop on his punches, he's one of those guys that throws 60% for the most part and then cracks one off at 90% looking for the finish at some point, and you're never going to know when he's going to mix that in. He got absolutely bodied in his last fight by Beneil Dariush, and that's the thing that's kind of giving me pause here. Now, Beneil Dariush is an extremely high-level grappler, wrestling and jiu-jitsu-wise, so that's not saying anything bad about the guy that he got mauled on the mat by Beneil Dariush, but Matt Frevola has a very similar skill set. So he had a 2-fight skid to Drew Dober and Jeff Neal. No questions asked there. Neal is going to be a future title contender. Drew Dober is on a career resurgence and maybe on the title hunt himself. He bounces back against Nick Hein and disposes of him. Big KO in the second round. And then he gets choked out by Beneil Dariush. So Camacho, he's got some upside. He's got some things that I really like to see. And he's just kind of had a rough run of it. He's been fighting a very high-level caliber fighter so far in his UFC run. Matt Frevola is on a 2-fight winning streak. He fought Jalen Turner and Luis Pena, both of them solid grapplers, dangerous on the mat, but don't pose that much of a threat on the feet. Jalen Turner hurt him on the feet badly, and it was close. And then he had a split with Pena. So that one could have gone either way. Could have definitely gone against him. Before that, he had a majority draw with Lando Venata, and he got hurt. He got hurt badly by Lando Venata. And Venata's got some wild spinning stuff, but he doesn't have as much pop on his punches that we like to think he does. And before that, he got KO'd in his UFC debut by Marco Polo Reyes. Those of you who don't know, who aren't familiar, need to understand that Marco Polo Reyes is garbage. He is 8-7, and he is 1-4 in his last 5. All the dude has is power. And if he doesn't clip you with a big punch, he's going to get mauled and knocked out himself. This guy knocked out Matt Frevola clean. So let's take a look at the betting odds after we have the full breakdown of what these guys are capable of, right? Frank Camacho, it's a pick'em. slight lean to Matt Frevola. Minus 115, comeback minus 105 on Frank Camacho. And I am very, very tempted to take Frank Camacho here. He has a 2-inch reach advantage. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage. And if we look at the striking output, both of these guys get barely outstruck by their opposition. Matt Frevola averages 3.19 significant strikes per minute, and then he gets hit with 3.47 significant strikes per minute. So his opponents are outstriking him. Frank Camacho averages 6.68 significant strikes per minute and gets hit with 7.14. So the fact of the matter is both these guys like to bang. There's a deficiency as far as what they get hit with. Both of them have the opportunity to get cracked here, and Frank Camacho has the bigger power. I don't know that Matt Frevola has the gas tank or the ability to do to Camacho what Beneil Dariush did. But I think I'm going to pass. It's a pick 'em for a reason. And I think that this is a spot where the UFC wants to push the 8-1 kid, the future of the division, that kind of thing. But I feel like Frank Camacho can play spoiler here. What do you guys think? What's everybody feeling on this one? First comment I see here is Elvis liking the under. Tune in on Friday to MMA Total Madness. We will definitely be talking about the under on this one. And yeah, I think that Polo Reyes did get popped. I think he is a USADA victim, but that doesn't change the fact that he had some pop on his punches before he gassed out basically in any of his other fights. Frevola should get it done here. And yeah, MMA math does not work. That's something you need to know. Just because fighter A beat fighter B does not mean that fighter B beats fighter C. Does not work that way. All right. So not a whole lot of opinion either way on this one. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a brawl, and there's a chance it could finish either way, by knockout or by submission. That underlook is not a bad option on this one. The next fight of the night is one that I have a little bit of a personal interest in. Those of you who don't know, I have a weakness for redheads. Gillian Savage Robertson taking on Courtney Casey. How Courtney Casey is ranked is beyond me. Let's just leave it at that. And this is actually going to be a really fun fight. So Gillian Robertson was one of the first ever fighters who was gracious enough to come on the Die Hard MMA podcast. And because of that, I took an immediate liking to her, and I am a little bit of a simp. If you don't know what a simp is, check Urban Dictionary. You'll get a good little laugh out of that later. But I'll fully admit that I'm a bit of a simp when it comes to Gillian Robertson. However, I very much like her skill set. She's building something. She's over at American Top Team. They are testing out some new stuff with her. And it's been a little bit of a bumpy road. You're going to expect that. But she has a style that I think is very, very dangerous and could be extremely effective moving forward once she perfects it. She's also extremely young. Gillian is only 25 years old. She is 7-4. Courtney Casey, on the flip side of this thing, is 33. She is 9-7. So she's just barely over a 500 fighter. She has extremely bad takedown defense. All right. Courtney Casey has a 39% takedown defense rating. She averages 4.72 significant strikes a minute and gets hit with 4.63. So over the course of her UFC career, she is trading evenly with her opponents. She doesn't outstrike them by enough for it to really matter. And she can get taken down almost at will. She has faced much higher levels of competition, though I do have to acknowledge that. That's an angle that I always try to take myself, is betting on fighters that have a competition level edge. However, she has been schooled by the majority of them, so it's not necessarily something that I want to read too far into here. And the fact that she gets taken down by just about everybody plays into Gillian Robertson's strengths. Gillian Robertson is an incredible offensive machine. All right, she's an offensive grappler. She's hunting for submissions. She has a relentless early attack. The danger with Gillian Robertson is if she gasses out. She can get a little overexcited in that first round and not leave herself much gas in the tank for rounds 2 or 3. But I think that's something that's going to come with age. I think that's something that she's going to be working on, and she looks to be in phenomenal shape if you take a look over at her Instagram. She has very improved striking, and she worked with Agapova, who you may recognize from last week's fight card. Agapova, who is the incredible striker with the huge height and reach. Gillian's been working closely with her. You can see on their Instagram, they're taking photos with each other pretty regularly. And to me, that is a very good sign that she's working with someone who is that skilled, has that kind of ability on the feet. She's going to get acclimated, I'm telling you. She's 8 years younger in this spot. And even though Her strike differential rating isn't phenomenal either. She averages 3.44 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she lands that at a 47% accuracy. So what that means is every 15-minute fight, she's getting 3.5 takedowns. And if you get back up, she's getting you back down because she lands half of her takedowns. So she is just a monster, absolute offensive monster here. And going up against a woman whose takedown defense is garbage, I think Gillian's going to be able to get her to the mat. Now, Courtney Casey has some pretty good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. That's going to be the key here. If she's going to catch Gillian with something, it's going to come off of her back. Gillian has been caught in a submission before. She got arm barred by Myra Bruno Silva, I believe. So it's happened. There's a history there. However, like I said, I believe that she is improving, and that was 2 years ago that took place. So Gillian is a much more improved fighter since then. I don't know that Courtney's going to be able to throw up some kind of fluky submission and catch her off the back. I expect Gillian to get on top, rough her up against the cage. We are in the small cage, mind you, so there's less room for her to close, less distance for her to get to her opponent, get her hands on her. And on top of that, Gillian is fully capable of TKO victories as well. When she got on top of Sarah Frodo, who is a much larger woman than she was, she unleashed hell, and she got the referee to step in and stop the fight very, very quickly. I am going to go ahead and roll the dice on my girl Gillian Robertson again. I got -125. The world doesn't seem to agree with me. You can get her at -120 now. The comeback on Courtney Casey is +100. And I may be a simp, but I'm going to own it. I've bet Gillian Robertson every single fight for her last 4 fights. I am 2-2, the same that she is, but I think this one's going to turn the tide. If she drops this one to Courtney Casey, I might be a bit off the train, especially when it comes to betting. I will still love and support her from my heart, but I won't be able to put my hard-earned money on her any longer. This is kind of the turning point for me. If she pulls this one off, that's what I want to see. She isn't with AGT. She's with him. Who's him? She's with him. Who's him? She was at ATG the last time I saw. I mean, I know everybody is kind of working from home at this point here. Oh, yeah, there you go. My man, Dean Thomas. Okay. Thank you very much. What's up, Gillian? Appreciate you jumping in the chat here. So, yeah, that's my take on that one. I know both these fights, betting Roxanne Modafferi at a small favorite line, betting Gillian Robertson at a small favorite line. Both of those are a little bit risky things to do. These are very close fights. I might go 1-1 here, but I see paths to victory. That's all it comes down to. When I see a clear path to victory that I find is more likely than the other outcome, I mean, I think Gillian Robertson has the ability to finish this fight by submission, by TKO, or grind out a decision against a striker who's not dangerous whatsoever. The way to beat Gillian Robertson is you let her gas herself out, and then you turn it up and you pound her face the way that Maycee Barber did. Well, Courtney Casey doesn't have that kind of gas. Courtney Casey doesn't have that kind of pop on her punches. So I don't expect her to be able to lay out Gillian Robertson the way that Maycee Barber did. And if she can't do that, then Gillian's going to stick to her like glue, back off, reset, get her gas back. This one may go the full 15 minutes, although Gillian never does that. She's done it 3 times in her career so far. She's gone the distance. Vincent, new to the chat. What's up, buddy? Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you joining the show. My boy Brandon here saying that this may be one that probably goes to decision. I am like 90% certain the Roxanne Modafferi fight goes to decision, but Gillian almost never goes to decision anymore. Like I said, she's a little firecracker, so I'm not sure if this one makes it the distance. And the bookmakers have given us a very interesting under on this fight, and I'm tempted to take it, but I'm almost scared that they gave it to us as a trap. So again, tune in on Friday for my Total Madness show. We'll go over it then. What's a 4-fight parlay y'all like? Help the man out in the chat. I've got a 2-fight parlay that I'll give you. That one's one of my best bets this week, but not giving a 4 one. Luke M saying Gillian has free money for this one. I have no idea why people are picking Casey. I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't use the L word. There's no such thing as a lock when it comes to sports betting. But I wouldn't say that she's free money, but I definitely like Gillian in this spot. I think she's got way more upside than Courtney Casey, being the younger fighter, the improving fighter. Definitely like that. Let's move on, shall we? We have got Marc-Andre Barriault taking on Oskar Pechota. And this one, folks, is the bad fight. This is the awful one on the card. I had some people a little earlier in the week asking me for some opinions on this fight, and I'm going to lead with this. If you're listening right now and you don't care, go ahead and skip ahead a couple minutes because you shouldn't bet this fight. You absolutely should not bet this fight. Now, if you're a degenerate like me and you want action on every single fight of the evening, that's fine. I get it. Throw $5 or $10 on it. So we'll try and figure something out here for you. But when it comes to a serious betting, if you're looking to lay some serious wood down, don't touch this one. So Marc-Andre Barriault is 11-4, and all 4 of those losses have come in the UFC, folks. He was an undefeated prospect before he made his way over to the octagon. Oskar Pechota is 11-3. All 3 of Oskar Pechota's losses have come in the UFC, folks. He was an undefeated prospect before he made his way over to the UFC. That's right. Both of these men have been repeatedly proven not to be UFC caliber, and that's why we can't touch this one. It's very much like the first fight of the night last week. Just don't do it. Andre Barriault, he waves the Canadian flag. I was sold on this guy. When he came over, I saw everything that I liked. I was ready to go to war with Marc-Andre Barriault. However, hindsight has given me a little bit of clarity. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 5? 4 or 5 split decisions coming over to the UFC, and they went his way. He did have 1 loss before he made it to the UFC, and that was a split decision loss. So essentially what that should have told me back in the day, which I didn't put together, is that this guy fights close every single time. Low level, high level, doesn't matter. He's never going to blow anybody out of the water unless he gets a KO. And he does have some early KOs, but the regional scene KOs you can't read a whole bunch into because a lot of those guys are bums. At any rate, I like to think of Marc-Andre Barriault as discount Ian Heinisch. This guy has a decent counter wrestling game. He's got decent pop on his punches. He flurries, strong right cross, covers up and looks to slip and rip back at his opponents. He has decent leg and body kicks, but he doesn't put a whole lot on them. Just very, very basic. He does what he needs to do, or what you would think he would need to do. He's decent everywhere, but he's not great anywhere. And that's all it comes down to. He does use the cage well to get back to his feet. He has good scrambles to get his position back. So if he does get taken down, his takedown defense is really like the one thing that I like. He's got good takedown defense and a good get up game. But once it's on the feet, he can't do a whole lot with it. Pechota, on the flip side of this thing, has absolutely wicked ground game. He's got slick transitions. He chains submission attempts. He can sweep people. He sweeps from submissions, which is something I love to see. He'll dive on 1, 2, 3 submissions in a row, and then he locks up something like a Kimura and uses it to reverse or get on top of you and get a better position. Very solid ground game from this guy. He has good trip takedowns to get the fight where it needs to go. He does have good, powerful body kicks. He has big power, but he's a little wild on the feet because obviously he's a grappler at first. He doesn't have the sharpest striking. If he lands, though, he can take you out. He does have that club and sub ability to knock you to the mat while you're rocked, take advantage of it. However, he's got no gas tank, and that's kind of the big difference between these two guys. Marc-Andre Barriault can go all 15 minutes without a problem. Dude doesn't break a sweat. He's got good gas. Oskar Pechota, on the other hand, has awful gas and will try to kill you in the first round. And if he can't kill you in the first round, has nothing to give in the second round. And you can make this guy quit. He has absolutely got that quit in him. And that's something that I can't handle. So I can't put my money on a quitter. And I can't put my money on a guy who I don't see has any path to victory other than a very difficult fought split decision. So, like I said before, this fight is a complete pass. Something in the back of my brain is telling me that Marc-Andre Barriault is actually going to get it done because he's got decent enough takedown defense that Oskar Pechota probably wears himself out, and then maybe Barriault actually gets some kind of a TKO. So that's the side that I would lean to, but I am not touching this. I'm not touching this one whatsoever. We've got champion picks here saying Emmett, Volkov, Reneau. I like that. I like that one. Luke saying the under will cash on this one. Maybe so. The only concern on this one, though, is Marc-Andre Barriault going all 15 minutes and not having a ton of pop on his punches. Connor McLaughlin saying another weak card. Spots make money, though. See, this one I think is a little more fun. This one's got more recognizable names. But yeah, I think there's some really good spots on this one. So kind of the same as last week. We're hoping for some fireworks to kick this thing off and have a good one. Let's see here. Sharp Money, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the chat. Thank you very much. Sports Gambling Daily. Yes, if we're going to go with anybody, it's going to be Barriault. Canadian, gun to the head if I've got to make a pick. That's going to be the one. Gabe Gillian saying Pechota by first round submission. And that right there is why I'm saying pass, folks, because Pechota's got the skill set. He absolutely could lock up a sub on this one. So I'm not touching it. If I give you, okay, here's the thing. The thing you need to know about me. If I give you a pick on the outcome of a fight, but I don't tell you it's an official bet, I don't feel strongly enough about it to put my money where my mouth is. So I don't really care. If I'm breaking down a fight and I'm like, I think this guy's going to win, but I'm not touching it with money, take it for what it's worth. If you bet the other way and you win, score, high five, good for you. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not sold on this fight whatsoever. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way. The under 2.5 might not be such a bad look because, like I said, if Pechota gasses out, maybe Marc-Andre can get a TKO because Pechota just has nothing left to offer, and then Pechota can get the sub. That's not a bad angle. Ooh, that's a take right there, Gabe. I don't know if I agree with that, but hey, more power to it if that's what you believe. Let us move on here. Till or Whitaker. This one is a very interesting matchup. I can't wait to talk about that one. Sneak preview. I'm kind of leaning Till. I want to see the line. I can't wait. I need to do some research on that one. But believe it or not, I might actually be siding with Darren Till on that one. Speaking of which, did y'all see what Darren Till did on social media? He bought the domain name for MikePerryIsABum.com. I'm not even kidding. Head on over to Twitter and check it out because he's posting up on a website. They've got like affiliate members or like subscribers or whatever for Mike Perry is a bum. And he's got it like the picture of Mike Perry where his nose is all busted off to the side. It's amazing. Till's troll level his troll game is on point. I love that guy. Gillian, what's up, buddy? On the Frevola fight, I'm kind of leaning to Camacho, my man. I know Frevola's got the grappling game, but I don't know if he's on Dariush's level. I think Frank Camacho might be able to land something. We've seen Frevola get wobbled. He got knocked out by, what's his biscuit? I can't remember the name off the top of my head. You caught me at a bad time. Sorry, man. He's been knocked out before by a non-caliber opponent, and I think Camacho might have the opportunity to land a bomb, but again, not one that I'm betting. So I'm not sold on that. If you're riding the train of Frevola, hey, he's 8-1. I wouldn't blame you there. Here we go. We've got Tecia Torres taking on Brianna von Buren. And this is a fight that the betting public seems very, very split on here. And I've got a hot take for y'all. Yes, Polo Reyes. Thank you. That's the guy right there. I've got a very spicy take for everybody here. Y'all ready for this? Buckle up, Buttercup. We're about to get serious. So Brianna Van Buren, she's 9-2 as a mixed martial artist. She comes to us from Invicta. It's her second UFC fight. She's an extremely fast starter. She's got strong body kicks. She blitzes forward with combinations. She finishes combos with leg kicks, which I love to see. That's a great strategy. She is strong in the clinch. She'll throw knees. If she gets her opponent backed up against the fence, she flurries, and I like to see that as well. Good inside-outside leg kicks. Good entries on her takedowns, physically strong. She is a little tank. And if she gets you on the mat, devastating ground and pound, strong top position, 2 knockouts, 3 submissions, 4 decisions on her record thus far. Very interesting prospect. Tecia Torres, the tiny tornado on the flip side of this thing. She is the partner of Raquel Pennington, who fights later on the card, which this is actually kind of cool. I love to see that. Those two are in a relationship, and the fact that they're both fighting on the card at the same time, I'm a fan of that. I think that's really cool for them to be able to work with each other in camp and support each other through it, and then also peak and fight at the same time. Really fun to watch those two as they go through this. She's very light on her feet. Very good at inside-outside movement, very athletic. She looks to load up on counter punches. She punches her way into her opponents to change levels, body locks. She mixes in the low calf kicks, and her main key is bullying her opponents. If she's able to outstrength her opponents, that's really where she shines. She scrambles really well. She strikes whenever she's breaking a clinch with somebody. And there is such a massive competition level with these two that it floors me. It is unreal the difference between the women that these two have fought. So Tecia Torres is probably fighting for her career right now, okay? She is riding a 4-fight losing streak, but let's read those names off, shall we? She beats Michelle Waterson, and then she loses to Jessica Andrade. No shame. Girls championship caliber. She loses to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the long reigning champion of this weight class, and still potentially championship caliber, just went to a very close decision with the champion. She fights Weili Zhang, the current champion. And then she fought Marina Rodriguez, a woman who had her height and reach advantage destroyed, like just absolutely towered over her, and who I believe is a rising contender, someone who I think is going to be in the title mix very, very shortly. 4 very, very high caliber, impressive names. Those are the 4 people that she lost to. In my opinion, there is no shame in any one of those losses. She went to decision in all 3 of them. And Van Buren, on the other hand, she's fought Jamie Moyle, Caitlin Curran. I mean, she's fought UFC dropouts over in Invicta. And yeah, she's finished a couple of them by choke, but that's what you should be doing. Let's look at the stats here on this one for just a minute. You may be starting to see where I'm headed on this one. And I know some of you are probably widening your eyes or rolling your eyes or saying, oh no, Clint, not again. But let's get there. Let's get there. Tecia Torres averages 4.04 significant strikes per minute over the course of her UFC career. Decent output. She absorbs 3.46 significant strikes per minute, so she is outlanding her opponents by about a half a strike a minute. Not as much as you'd want to see, but she's still outstriking the majority of her UFC opponents. She's got a 52% takedown defense, and again, that's over the cream of the crop in the division. And Brianna Van Buren has only a 1-fight sample size, so we really can't pull anything from that, but she averages 4.8 significant strikes per minute, so a little bit more than Tecia Torres, but she fought a complete bum. Guys, I don't understand this. Right now, Tecia Torres is a plus 170 dog. I got her at plus 175. I don't understand what's going on here. Van Buren is a 2-1 favorite over a veteran UFC fighter who is only lost to the absolute best that the division has to offer. We've talked before about the angle of the UFC wanting to have the hype prospect get in here and take a win off of somebody. But the biggest issue for Tecia Torres in her fights has been being the smaller fighter. When she ran into those last couple of fighters, she just couldn't do anything. Her whole game plan is rough them up against the cage, take them down, and maul them. That's what she does best. Jessica Andrade, you're not mauling Jessica Andrade. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, best takedown defense in the division. You're not taking down Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Weili Zhang, stronger and more powerful than Andrade. You're not taking her down or putting her up against the cage unless she wants to be there. When she says takedown, you say yes, ma'am. And Marina Rodriguez, who she struggled mightily with because of a massive reach advantage. Van Buren, on the flip side of this thing, is going to be smaller than Tecia Torres. Torres has a 1-inch height advantage. Now, Van Buren repays that with a 2-inch reach advantage, so she'll have just a little bit longer on her arms. But this is the first opponent that Tecia Torres has that can match her size in 5 years. 5 years since she's had an opponent that's been the same size as her. Guys, I have to. I took Tecia Torres at plus 175 because I fade people stepping up in competition. That's exactly what Van Buren is doing here. I bet on experience. Tecia Torres has all the experience in the world, and this is going to be a close, hairy split decision. These two women are going to fight extremely closely. It's going to be a back-and-forth battle. They're both going to get some good licks in. They're both going to get some takedowns in. They're both probably going to have some cage control time. This is a 50-50 fight. I am flipping the coin at plus 175. And if I believe that this is a 50-50 fight and I'm getting plus 175 on it, I am not doing myself justice as a bettor to avoid that spot. So as much as I am disappointed because I bet on Tecia Torres a couple of times and I've lost some money with her, I don't really want to go back to the well. I can't miss that line. I have to bet the plus 175. And my boy Lag says the bull is coming. We are head-to-head on this one, buddy. Looking forward to it. And Gabe says Torres has the finest ass I've seen on a fighter in person. Hector Lombard is a close second. Nice. Very nice. So fun story. Speaking of which, we're going to take a short little detour here. The best ass I've seen on a fighter in person is Ryan Bader. And I've seen his ass. I used to train at Power MMA at Fitness. And I went to the early morning Muay Thai classes. And one day I roll on into the showers. I was the only person in there, literally the only person that would use the showers because it was like the 5:30 a.m. striking class. And I would roll into the showers, no problem, strip down, shower off, like nobody else was in the gym. It didn't matter. And one day I roll in and I come around the corner and someone walks by me and you do that whole guy in the gym thing, just don't make eye contact, right? Like whatever. I turn around and it's Ryan fucking Bader. Like, yes, the heavyweight champion of Bellator. And he's buck naked. And let me tell you, I'm sorry, totally straight here, no homo, but that man's ass was sculpted by the gods. I mean, you should have seen the muscle definition on this dude. Okay, enough about Ryan Bader in the shower. I'm sorry. Jake Coyle saying, who did I pick? Modafferi versus Murphy. I got Modafferi, buddy. Van Buren is the future, and Tecia is on her way out. That may be true, but I think Tecia has shown just enough fight in her last couple of fights to show me that she's still relevant. She's fought with, like I said, the very best that the division has to offer. So maybe she is on her way down, but that still might be enough to beat Van Buren in her second UFC fight. We will see. Pav going head-to-head with me here again, but yep, dog or pass value on that side, and took Wiley the distance. Right? Like, you know what? Let's take another detour here. Let's go over to Wiley Zhang's page for just a second, because I want to see how many people recently have made it to decision with Wiley Zhang. This girl has 21 wins in the women's division, and 10 of those have come by knockout. She knocked out Jessica Andrade cold. Tecia Torres took her all 15 minutes. Girl's got some toughness. Girl's got some durability. And when you're fighting for your career, you come up. You show up. Goob saying Torres one of the best value bets on the whole card, and I agree. And you're right, Brianna is more aggressive than Tecia, but remember, they are the same size, and Tecia loads up on counters. Brianna's going to do, it's exactly like the Tyson-Nam fight last week. I had to pull the trigger on Nam because he was the more experienced fighter, and his opponent was going to bring it to him. His opponent was serving up the game plan on a silver platter. That's exactly what's happening here. Brianna will bring the game to Tecia, and because of that, Tecia will have opportunities to counter. It's going to be a close fight, folks. We may lose this one by split decision. We might, but I'm going to flip that coin. Sports gambling saying no naked stuff, please. I'm sorry I don't have a Paige Van Zandt story for you. I'm sorry. The only UFC fighter I've seen naked is Ryan Bader. This guy can break that down. What's up, High Kick? Thank you very much, my friend. Jay, welcome to the show. Always full of energy, man. Positivity and love here at the Die Hard MMA podcast. We are a family. We're here to make money. That's the opportunity. And you know what? I've never understood the pissing contest of sports bettors and people on Twitter and stuff like that. We should all be on the same team. We're trying to take money from the bookie, right? Let's get it. All right, moving right along. Clay Guida taking on Bobby King Green. And while this is a fun fight, man, you could flip this one with Roxanne Modafferi. The women should be in this spot, I feel like. This is a shit show of a fight. It's going to be a fun one, don't get me wrong, but it's not fantastic. Clay Guida is a household name, though. Can't really give him much flack there. Beach Boss, what's up, buddy? Guida, yep, he's back. He's still sticking around. Coco Bongo, my ass looks like a catcher's mitt. Early leader for comment of the stream, my guy, Coco Bongo. All right. So, Bobby, I got to refocus here. You just blew me off my roof. Blew me off the tracks. All right. Clay Guida taking on Bobby King Green. A couple of UFC vets here. Clay Guida is just shot. I'm sorry. We have to start with that. Clay Guida's whole thing used to be durability, and it is done. Much like Frankie Edgar, he's a fighter of a bygone era, and he's been finished just way too many times. He doesn't have it anymore. He fires these wild winging hooks that leave him open for counters. He's got awkward head movement. He does bounce side to side. He's hard to hit, hard to time. He's got a very high takedown defense offense, and he looks to bully his opponents up against the cage. That's a fine game plan, except it doesn't work when you can't take a shot anymore. Bobby Green on the other side of this thing, BJJ purple belt, which you'd like to see him higher at this level of his game. But I mean, just because he never tested for a brown belt doesn't mean he's not on that level, right? He's a lifelong fighter. He's probably worth a little higher than purple. but he's always relaxed, very calm in his fights, and he talks shit. That's one thing I like to see. In the middle of the fight, he will be Nate Diaz style talking shit to his opponents. He fires hard leg kicks, and he forces every single fight into a brawl. Good head movement, good footwork, very elusive, and a very high output. In my opinion, Bobby got robbed in his last fight, and he could have won both of his last 2 fights. So I think Bobby clearly won Francisco Trinaldo. I feel like that was a blatant highway robbery, and he should have that win there. And he fought very, very closely with Drakkar Klose, and that was not a joke. Sorry, bad pun. It was not intentional. But what that leaves us with is that Green is 1-5 in his last 6 with 1 draw to mix in there. So 1-5-1 in his last 7. Not impressive whatsoever. But he had the split with Lando Venata that could have gone his way. He fought to a split with Rashid Magomedov, which could have gone his way. He should have got the win against Francisco Trinaldo. He could have got the win against Drakkar Klose. He's one of these guys who is a perfect gatekeeper, right? He's exciting. He's fun. The UFC is going to keep him around forever. He's not getting finished. He's not getting knocked out. I mean, once he did, but that was by Dustin Poirier, top of the division. You can't really say much about that. He's fighting well with very talented fighters. So Bobby Green is in a much better place, in my opinion, than Guida is, and he's going to come in here with a chip on his shoulder. Somehow the dude's only 33. I have no idea. Every single time I break down a Bobby Green fight, I look at the page and I expect to see 37, 38 years old, and he's only 33. No clue how that's possible with a 24-10 record. Clay Guida, 38 years old. I told you I don't have a lot of angles, but one of the angles I do is the magic number is 40. Don't bet on a fighter that's 40 years or older unless you've got a damn good reason to do so. So if it's a close fight and you lean one way, but they're 40 years old, maybe just hold off. If you can give me a damn good reason why you should put your money there, then go for it. But if you don't have that damn good reason, stay off it. Guida's getting into that dangerous territory, but he's 38 going on 52. The amount of damage he's taken in his career is unreal. He's got 35 wins and 19 losses, 10 of those by submission. Dude gets choked out a lot. In his last little bit of a run, he is 1-2, which doesn't sound so bad, but he got subbed out by Oliveira. He got subbed out by Jim Miller, both very dangerous offensive grapplers, but both of them in the very first round made it look easy. Guida doesn't belong there with those guys anymore. And then his lone win, you ready for this? His lone win is over BJ Penn. BJ Penn in 2019, folks, if that tells you anything. The guy who can't win a fight if his mom's soul was on the line anymore because of the rough career he's had. That's the guy Clay Guida's got to win over. And he struggled in that fight. BJ Penn hurt him in that fight. Bobby's the side, folks. The only problem is I don't want to lay minus 200 on a guy who's on a 1-5-1 run. This is a spot where normally I would look at this and say, you parlay Bobby Green. He should absolutely win this fight. I think he knocks Clay Guida out. But somehow this guy finds a way to lose fights. Somehow Bobby Green finds a way to sell fights down the river. And that's the only reason that he's not locked into a big juicy parlay or something like that for me, because at minus 235, I cannot bet on this man. And I apologize for that, but I absolutely think that he is the side here. I think he's going to finish Clay Guida, like everybody else that's halfway decent does these days. Alex Ramirez, buddy, what's going on? Welcome to the chat. Thank you very much for tuning in. Glad you're enjoying it, Champino. Appreciate that. Sprinkle Bobby by submission. Yep. I would look inside the distance on him with Bobby because he's got some serious power. He's Pav saying that Bobby's betting on Guida. Good opportunity to cash in on the fact that no one expects you to show up ever. Yep. Maybe a rear naked choke. Gabe in here with some knowledge. Green lands 52 strikes. Guida lands 23 strikes. Green wins a decision. That's kind of how I'm feeling. I don't know that Bobby Green has the submission offense to land the choke here and get it done. It wouldn't shock me if he does because, like we said, Guida gets choked out relatively easily, but that's not his go-to game. He likes to strike. And I don't know how bad Guida's chin is at this point. He gets subbed a lot. He doesn't get knocked out a lot. So I think Bobby Green by decision definitely has some value to it. I like that look. I got Guida going to be drunk and pissed. Hey, at least you're betting the dog, right? If you're going to have a drink in your hand, if you're going to be having a damn good time, don't lay the giant chalk. If you lose that one, then you feel awful. But if you're going to be drunk and betting on an underdog who's a UFC legend, it can't be so bad, right? Have some fun. Let me get the stats up here. Ooh, Buffo double up on Bobby here. I like it. All right. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me. This is a good time. Let's get our way over to the main card with the magic of the green screen here. We've got, oh, speaking of which, Jim Miller. We were just talking about that guy. Jim Miller taking on Roosevelt Roberts, a young, up-and-coming, hot prospect, mind you. If I could put GIFs into this video, I would be doing that right now with Zoolander. He's so hot right now. Roosevelt Roberts is coming off a solid win over Brock Weaver. However, Brock Weaver's a bit of a bum. We all know this. He may not be UFC caliber, but the fact that he's so physically strong and durable, and Roosevelt was able to wear him down and put him away in round 2, still found positive takeaways for me, in my opinion. Jim A10 Miller, which I don't know when he got the A10 nickname, but I don't like it. I'm just going to call him Jim Miller. He's only got one round of gas these days. Have you noticed that? It seems like Jim is boom or bust, and it all happens in the first round. Let's take a look at his recent record. Since April 21st, 2018, knockout loss first round, submission win first round, submission loss first round, submission win first round, submission win first round, and then a 3-round unanimous decision against Scott Holtzman where he took a beating in February, and I had the unfortunate pleasure of betting on Jim Miller. I saw an opening in Scott Holtzman's game, and I filled that hole with a skill that Jim Miller has, and he brought the action, man. I'm not sold on Scott Holtzman, and I thought Jim Miller had enough left in the tank to get that one over. I was wrong. He took a beating for the full 15 minutes, and he did answer back. He landed some big shots the way I knew he was going to, but he just didn't have enough pop on his punches to put away a guy that's durable like Scott Holtzman. So let's look at some of these numbers, shall we? Jim Miller has a 71-inch reach. He is 5'8". Roosevelt is 6'2", so he's going to have a massive height advantage here, and has a 73-inch reach. So only a 2-inch reach advantage, but still, it's something. Roosevelt Roberts averages 3.12 significant strikes per minute, absorbing only 2.26, whereas Jim Miller averages 2.83 significant strikes per minute and is absorbing 3.02. So these days, he is tipping the scales from trading with his opponents to being a punching bag. He, unfortunately, is on his way out. Jim Miller does have a 41% takedown accuracy, which is pretty good, but he only averages 1.69 takedowns per fight, which usually is because the fight is over after that. So that's not really a bad number. Normally, we wouldn't like to see that ratio there, but most of Jim Miller's fights are over after the one takedown, so it doesn't really matter. Takedown defense rating, however, is 46%. That's not great either. Even though he wants to be on the ground, you'd like to see him keep the fight on the feet if you wanted to a little bit more than that. Roosevelt Roberts is just superior everywhere as far as his numbers go. Now, again, we have to take into account the level of competition, right? Jim Miller has been fighting everybody in the UFC forever. But we've gotten to the point where I think his durability is starting to go. And especially with the fact that in that Scott Holtzman fight, in the he gasses. If he doesn't kill you in the first round, rounds 2 and 3 get ugly. And Roosevelt Roberts has shown that he turns that dial up. He turns the intensity up as the fight goes on, as opposed to turning it down. So long story short, your boy's playing Roosevelt Roberts here. I actually have a 2-unit parlay, which if you follow me, you know my 2-unit parlay is my max bet. I only do 1 unit per bet. Slow and steady is the way to go for me. I like to keep a small unit size, and I like to rapid fire. I like to have a lot of bets, a lot of picks, and then try and chip out some profit like that. But when I feel really comfortable on something, when I feel really good about a play, I will throw 2 units at it, and that's what I've done here. Roosevelt Roberts at minus 255 is the first leg of my 2-teamer parlay. He's still sitting at 2. Actually, I appear to have botched this line movement here. Some money is coming in on Jim Miller. He's about 225 right now, which really surprises me. You got to wonder who is betting Jim Miller in this spot, because Jim's path to victory is going to be take this kid down and choke him out. The choke is essentially all he's got. He's sub or bust. Roosevelt Roberts has good takedown defense. He's got good submission defense. He's an excellent grappler himself. He is going to be the younger fighter by, a lot. Jim is 36. Roosevelt is 26. That's a 10-year difference. The younger fighter wins those a lot when there's that big of a gap in age. I just think this is a changing of the guard fight, folks. I think Roosevelt Roberts gets it done. And as much as I hate to see it, I don't think Jim Miller's got anything for him. How do you all feel? I'm going to get caught up here on the chat. Gas stations say maybe take Miller first round at giant odds. Yeah, I mean, if you can get good odds on Miller in round 1, go for it. But I think the bookies are going to be a little wise to that. We're going to have to look at the round totals when they come out a little later on. Yo, Sports Keg, what's up, buddy? Thanks for jumping in the chat. I appreciate you joining in. Curious how you feel on this fight card, man. I'm going to be watching your breakdowns a little later on as well because there are so many fights on this card that are so close. I mean, this is one of those ones you legitimately could make a case for almost every single fighter on the card. Thanks for tuning in, Pav. Have a good one. And Alan, yeah, Roberts round 2 punches. I'm kind of feeling the same thing, man. I think it's a ground and pound. I think Roberts is going to defend himself in round 1. He's going to piece up Jim. Jim is going to start to fade. And then when we get to round 2 or round 3, Roberts will be able to start pounding him out. Gillian saying Robertson doesn't have good enough takedown defense. He got taken down by Pechota and Yakovlev. Yeah, I mean, that's true. And he won't survive that position against Miller. But this is one of those guys that I think he's constantly improving, and especially what he showed us in the Brock Weaver fight, I think he's headed the right direction. I'm going to go ahead and risk it, man. I feel what you're saying there. He could have it. He needs to improve. But again, Yakovlev is a guy that's got 3 rounds of gas. Yakovlev is a guy that can keep on coming. I don't think Jim can. I think Jim's got round 1, and that's it. So if Jim doesn't get him in round 1, we're in trouble here. And I think Roberts can win by 3-round decision or also inside the distance. So that's why I have parlayed him at that big price. I do feel like I missed out, though. I wish I got that minus 225 for sure. Moving right along, we've got Belal Muhammad taking on Lyman. Good. And this one's fun. This one is fun. Belal, remember the name Muhammad, is one of those fighters that's just so hard to look good against. He reminds me a lot of George St. Pierre. Heavy, hard-nosed grappler. He just wants to grind on you. Good submission game, but he's a decision machine. Out of his 16 wins, he's got 11 of those by decision. He's got some good power striking. However, he uses it to kind of set up his takedowns. He uses striking when he's only in close range. He stays outside where his opponents can't really touch him, and then he closes that range extremely fast to get in on a takedown, grab the body lock, and he's one of these guys that can just body his opponents. I mean, pick them up over his head, slam them to the mat. You cannot deny this man on his takedowns. Once he gets to the mat, he transitions almost immediately to the back. He's got excellent wrist control. He's got excellent ability to backpack his opponents, which if you're new to the sport of MMA, that's when you get back control on somebody and you're there the whole rest of the round. They can't get you off. You wear him like a backpack and you're in a choke threat constantly. He's got really good boxing, a good lead left hook. And like I said, he's just so hard to look good against. He's got an excellent gas tank. This is one of those guys that can go a full 15 minutes and be all set to go. So, I mean, it's hard. It's so hard. Belal Muhammad is one of those guys that he's just on a run, man. And you've got to have a very specific skill set or you've got to clip him to get him off. You've got to have incredible takedown defense to stop him. He's so hard to get around. And Lyman Good is the kind of guy that I just don't know if he's got it. He's incredibly physically strong. Lyman Good is the reincarnation of Vitor Belfort. Like this guy, he looks like he was sculpted by an angel. And I think he's on all the testosterone. He's on all the steroids. He's absolutely massive, insanely explosive. He's got a big right hand. He's got a sneaky head kick, and he's got really heavy leg kicks that he likes to chip away with. Now, I know I made the comparison to Vitor, but this guy reminds me of Yoel Romero, the way that he explodes and then resets to get his gas tank back and then explodes again. That's really how this guy fights. He's got good killer instinct, and he's training with Shane Burgos, who fights later on the card. I always like to see teammates that are training well together. But I think this is a bad match. So Belal Muhammad is 1-2 in his last 3 fights. However, he was on a 4-fight winning streak before that, and he's coming off of an impressive third-round submission of Takashi Sato, who gave him a hell of a fight that night. Lyman Good is 2-2, alternating wins and losses, coming off a big knockout win over Chance Rencounter, which is not something I saw happening. I like Chance Rencounter. I thought he was going to be able to get the grappling going, and he had nothing. And the fact that he was able to survive till round 3 with Lyman Good beating on his chin says something about the durability of Chance. Dude's tough as nails. But before that, Lyman Good got taken down and choked out in round 1 by Demian Maia. Demian Maia and Belal Muhammad are built very similar, folks. Extremely similar styles. And this is the one that I'm staring at. This is the one that I'm staring so hard at the line going, Belal Muhammad at minus 140. How do I not take that? He has exactly the type of skill set that you want to take out a guy like Lyman Good. Lyman Good has gas tank issues if you make him wrestle. If he can strike, if he can feel his range and dance around the cage basically the entire fight, he can keep up for a 15-minute match. However, if you force him to wrestle, if you get on top of him, if you make him carry you and make him get up again, that's when he drains. That's when the pop comes off of that punch. But Belal Muhammad is discount Demian Maia. He's not quite on that level, but he's got the right skill set. I don't know, guys. I'm passing on this one. I think Belal Muhammad is the right side. He can win by decision. He can win by submission. But that power of Lyman Good, and Good seems to be turning stuff up. I mean, the fight against Rencounter was solid. But again, before that, I mean, he fought to a split with Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, but that was all the way back in 2017. So we can't read a ton into that. And he knocked out Ben Saunders. That doesn't tell us a whole lot either. Ben Saunders is shot. So this is one that, as much as I think Belal Muhammad is the right side, I simply can't touch. It's one that I'm too scared to risk my money on. All right. Eddie, what's up, buddy? Best bets, my man. So I'm going to go over all my bets at the end of the show. I'm hitting on them as we go through on each fight breakdown, but I will recap it at the end. So if you're watching this later on and it's on replay, you can find all my action at the end. I'm getting caught up here. Boston Nick taking Robertson at plus 275. Nice, man. By knockout. I like it. All right. Muay Thai. Be nice. Be nice in my chat room. Belal is not half the takedown artist Demian Maia is. Nailed it. And that right there is what I'm talking about, Gabe. I want to take Belal Muhammad. I believe that he's got exactly what you need to take down Lyman Good and do what he needs to do. However, I don't know if he can do it. I mean, Good is such a brick shit house. He's so strong physically. And I know Belal Muhammad is a strong guy as well. I'm not discounting him there at all. But just because Demian Maia was able to do it doesn't mean anybody else is going to be able to. Even old Demian Maia was levels above a lot of other people. I think Belal, but I'm not sold on it. This is another one of those ones where I wouldn't be shocked if Lyman Good lands one of those big old bombs. And yeah, right there, Kadir saying that Belal's going to get knocked out, and I wouldn't be surprised, man. Would not be surprised. Muay Thai. All right, you saucy wench. You do what you want to do. Random question, different card. Do you think Bumblebee is out of the UFC? Oh, definitely. I'm sorry, Jamie. Mark De La Rosa, that was his last shot. He was on a 4-fight skid going into that fight. He only got that call because we're in the COVID situation. No way he gets the call back. It's been proven time and time again that he does not compete well at the UFC level. I think he's done. He'll be a regional hero from this point moving forward. Raquel Pennington taking on Marion Reneau. Here we go. Here we go. So Raquel Pennington is a fighter who I've bought in on a couple of times, and recently she's been letting me down. I thought she was going to bounce back strong after her loss to Jermaine Durandamy. She got that split over Irene Aldana, but I saw everything that I wanted to see, and I bet on her against Holly Holm. I thought that her grappling style was going to be perfect for basically keeping Holly Holm pinned up against the fence and stifling her striking attack. However, I didn't account for how physically strong Holly Holm is, and that game plan worked in reverse. So I paid on that one, and I'm starting to feel like Raquel Pennington is fading a little bit. She has a good inside leg kick that she uses, and she likes to wade forward. She's another forward pressure style fighter. She is decently solid defensively. She's got decent power for the weight class, but not great. When she clinches up against people, that's really when she kind of shines, unless, of course, like with Holly Holm, she is out strength, and she is strong in top position. She scores well with ground and pound. If she's on top of you on the mat, it's perfect because she will be working. She'll constantly be tagging you with punches, ground and pound that'll score well on the judges' cards. But she seems to accept the cage position. These days, she's getting pushed up against the fence a lot, and she's just kind of being okay with it, and that's not something that I like to see. I really feel like she is fading, and I don't think she's been the same fighter since she lost and took that beating to Amanda Nunes. She's 8-10, even though she's fighting the who's who, the top tier of the division. She's still just almost a 500 fighter at this point. Now she's taking on Marion Reneau. Reneau is 9-5, which is also not that impressive, and she's 42. Remember, we talked about that rule I've got about 40-year-olds. Reneau is very, very proud of her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. She is a world champion at the purple belt level, and she is willing to accept bottom position because of that. She actually is willing to jump guard on her opponents, going for chokes and forcing the fight to the mat that way. On the feet, she blitzes in with these wild combos. She actually has some heavy hands. In her previous fight with Yana Kunitskaya, she actually busted her nose in that fight, and that was a very close back and forth fight, and Yana's a girl that people are high on. She has heavy ground and pound. Now, I talked about Pennington having decent ground and pound. Marion Reneau's got some ground and pound. When she gets on top of you, she's dealing damage. She's not scoring. She's hurting people. Very, very dangerous off of her back with submissions, and it seems like she finishes or she loses by decision. However, this fight, she's been training with Aspen Ladd, who is a very exciting prospect in this division, and I think that is a perfect training partner for her to get ready for someone like Raquel Pennington, someone who's probably even bigger and stronger than Raquel Pennington, for her to kind of size herself up against. Am I crazy for wanting to bet Marion Reneau here? Now, I know I told everybody that you've got to have a damn good reason to bet anybody over 40, but I feel like even though she's the older fighter and should be closer to retirement, she's the one who's got the upside. She's the one who is streaking. I mean, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. She kind of shined in her last couple of fights, even losing. So she fought Kat Zingano. Kat Zingano is a hard-nosed grappler, really heavy top game, good submission defense, and she basically laid on top of Marion Reneau for a full 15 minutes, and Reneau couldn't get the submission game going. Yana Kunitskaya, young prospect, people are excited about this girl, and Marion took the fight to her. At the end of that fight, if you judged a fight based on faces, Reneau won that one. Yana was the one busted up and bleeding with a broken nose. She subbed Sarah McMahon, which, let me repeat that, she submitted Sarah McMahon. Not many people can do that. McMahon's a high-level grappler, and she choked her out with a triangle. She TKO'd Talita Bernardo. I mean, this chick's a badass 40-year-old woman. Yikes. So looking at the line, I mean, plus 125 coming back on Marion, minus 145 on Pennington. I cannot lay chalk on Pennington at this point. That's basically my take on this fight. Pennington is over the hill and kind of drifting away, and I don't see that fire in her anymore. I really feel like she's kind of ready to go out to pasture. I think she's fully aware that she's going to be nowhere near the title again anytime soon. And I think Marion, on the other hand, is fighting for fun. I think Marion enjoys her day job. I think Marion likes to bring the fight, and I think she likes to hurt people. And when you've got a fighter who's kind of checked out and wants to push her opponent up against the cage and doesn't really go for the kill, and then you've got a killer who's coming in to let loose and have a good time, I kind of got to side with the one who's got the emotional push there. So I'm not going to bet it yet. I'm going to keep an eye on it and see how much wider this line gets and kind of feel the room a little bit moving forward. But I'm very tempted to bet on Marion Reneau here at dog odds. I think this is a wild fight. And yeah, I think the teacher is going to get it done. How's everybody feeling about my hot takes on this one? Yeah, Jay, Marion's going to be 43 by fight day. That's wild. Absolutely wild. Have to keep track of Rocky's record with and without Tecia. She's been working on her cardio in the bedroom with Tecia Torres or not. Yeah, Colby Covington style, bedroom cardio, baby. Yeah, I have seen them on IG, and that's kind of the thing, is that Tecia Torres has been posting a lot of training videos. She's been posting a lot of workout stuff, whereas all I'm seeing from Rocky is the brunches out in the woods, the hikes, the nature. She doesn't really seem dialed into me. Tecia Torres, on the other hand, seems to be posting a lot of gym stuff. And if we're just talking about Instagram capping, Tecia seems to be the one that's a little bit more excited about the fight to me in this case. Boston Nick saying, don't do it, that Rocky will outstrike her and win a decision. Man, I don't know. Rocky doesn't outstrike much of anybody, though. We'll see. Craig against me here. Don't do it. Yep. Nobody's liking my pick here. Mo Scream, what's up, buddy? Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Hey, Gabe, love seeing that back up there. Dog or pass, love it. That's kind of what I'm feeling. If you're going to make a bet on this one, you got to take the dog. I don't know how you're going to lay that kind of wood. Chris, I like Reneau. Okay, it's starting to swing. At first, I was getting beat up by the chat. Now I'm getting a little bit of support here. I like it here. Zero, what's up, buddy? Thank you very much for tuning into the show. I appreciate you, my friend. Rocky just going through the motions. Exactly. And when you're getting in a cage, you're locking the door and only one person gets to walk out. You can't be going through the motions. Can't be doing it. You got to have that fire. And if I don't see that fire, I might end up throwing a little something on Reneau. You know, this is another one of those cards. If I felt like losing my mind again, I could bet every single fight. I'd probably end up losing my ass again, but I could bet every single fight if I wanted to. Not going to. Stop it. All right, we're at the co-main event, folks. This is where stuff gets really, really fun. These last two fights are an absolute joy to break down. Before that, though, I want to give a thank you to the boys at GOAT Capital Sports for supporting me, Pub Sports Radio as well, and big shout out to odds.com. Again, if you're already doing this, head on over to Odds HQ, give me a like, give me a subscribe to my podcast, the Die Hard MMA podcast as well. I would appreciate it. Head over to Odds HQ, subscribe over there. We're going to have some awesome content coming at you in the future. Tomorrow, live streaming with my boys, Jimmy the Bag, Mo Scream, and Boston Nick. On Thursday or Friday, the Total Madness show should be coming out on the YouTube show where I go over the over and unders for the entire card. And then I'll be doing my weigh-in recap on Friday, talking about final looks at these guys before they enter the cage on Saturday. Let's do it. This one's fun. Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos. Oh, all right. I dug in deep on this one, folks. I dug in deep. So let me start by telling you, as soon as this fight got dropped, I went Shane Burgos. No brainer. I immediately wanted to bet this man, and it took everything I had not to lock the bet in until I had done my homework. That's something that I tend to do from time to time, where if I'm excited about a fighter, I will bet them blindly without doing the tape study. And you got to do your tape study when you're betting on fights. You've got to make sure you understand exactly what's going on, and I'm so happy I did here. So let's start with Burgos. Rising prospect, 13-1, super tight boxing, really good fighter, fast, excellent jab. He finds the range early. He cuts angles. He's got excellent head movement. He's got a good teep, a front kick that he uses to keep the range from his opponents. He likes to stay in the pocket and trade. He attacks the lead leg of his opponents. He can drop his hands a little bit when he gets in there, but he's got an incredible gas tank. He just outworks everybody. This fucking guy averages 7.9 significant strikes per minute. Unreal output from Shane Burgos. They call him the Hurricane for a reason. However, he absorbs 5.34 significant strikes per minute. When you've got that kind of output, you leave yourself open for counters, and that's just the way the world works. He's got a solid takedown defense rating, 90% over 7 UFC fights. That's incredible. And he's got a 100% takedown offense rating, which, you know, that number's always skewed. When you shoot for one and hit one, you got 100%. This guy doesn't do takedowns. He's got a 75-inch reach, and that's going to give him an incredible 5-inch reach advantage over Josh Emmett. And that is the big scare here, is that he's going to have that reach and range advantage. However, Josh Emmett on the flip side of this thing, 15-2. 6 of those wins coming by the way of knockout, incredibly fast and athletic, a team alpha male product, big right hand, extremely fast right hand counter, and he rips the body. He's got a good, solid wrestling base, which if he tests Shane here would be interesting to see. I don't know how much he's going to look to do that, but if he does, he trains over at Alpha Male. Those boys can wrestle, and he was a collegiate wrestler, I believe. He's got the opportunity here to really test that high-level defense rating. Absolute hellish ground and pound. If Josh Emmett gets you on the mat, you're in freaking trouble. This guy will beat you through the canvas. Big elbows, and he drops his hands when he's throwing. So he also can get caught when he gets into those exchanges. In his last 5 UFC fights, he has knocked down every single opponent at least once. His last 5, he's scored at least a knockdown. Bear that in mind here. He's got a 70-inch reach. Already said he's at a 5-inch disadvantage here. He averages 3.63 significant strikes per minute, and he absorbs 3.26. So he's taken it about as good as he gets. He slightly outstrikes his opponents, but he's that guy that takes one to give one, and he is willing to roll the dice on his power. Here's where stuff gets interesting. Shane Burgos eats right hands. He eats them like candy, all right? Josh Emmett's best punch is the right hand. He's incredibly fast, and he can close range like a mother. And he uncorks that right hand with a fury, especially when he's countering. That's how he ended Michael Johnson's night in round 3 with one of the most vicious walk-off KOs you'll ever see. He finally caught his window and timed it right. And when this kid lands, you are not surviving it. Shane gets hit with that right hand over and over and over. I watched his tape on his last couple of fights. Kurt Hollabaugh, Calvin Kattar, Cub Swanson, Makwan Americani. The most success they all had was with the right hand. Now, Calvin Kattar, he's the true prospect here, right? This guy's title contention worthy and an absolute monster. Getting knocked out by him is no shame. But eating that same punch over and over and over again, that's the key here. He knocked him out with that right hand. He got dropped by Kurt Hollabaugh in round 1 with that right hand. So even though that fight reads that Shane Burgos won by first round submission, he got his clock cleaned by the punch that he can't stop. And it would have been lights out if he took another one, I feel like. He managed to scramble and get the sub on the mat, but it was not looking good for him early in that fight. He went to war with Cub Swanson. Absolute war with Cub Swanson. 134 significant strikes for Shane Burgos, 129 significant strikes for Cub Swanson. That's the kind of war that takes years off your life. And then when he fought Makwan Americani, he outscored him 105 significant strikes to 22. Makwan had nothing for Burgos on the feet, but it took Burgos until round 3 to knock this kid out. So he's a volume striker. Even though he's got some pop on his punches, he's probably not a round 1 threat type of puncher, and that's the only guy we've been able to see who gave Josh Emmett any kind of pause. When Josh Emmett took that loss, it was to Jeremy Stephens and then Desmond Green, who was a bigger, stronger, more durable wrestler than he was, and he wasn't able to overcome that difference. Shane's not going to out-wrestle him, and Shane doesn't have that Jeremy Stephens one-hitter-quitter type of power that literally broke the bones in Josh Emmett's face. Makwan Americani landed several big right hands on Shane Burgos. When Shane was hunting for the finish, he overextended, and Makwan Americani, a grappler, was able to eat him with some big right hands in that 3rd round. Folks, all this comes down to is I'm betting on the right hand. I have got Josh Emmett locked up at plus 115, and I love it because both of these guys are contender-worthy fighters. Josh Emmett may be sold on his power. Josh Emmett may be the guy who needs to get that knockout to win because he's not a volume striker. He's just not going to beat you that way. But this opponent is going to hold that door wide open for him. If I miss this bet, if I end up whiffing on this one because he doesn't get the knockout, I'm okay with that. I'm making this bet based on the fact that I know he needs that knockout, but it's literally his best punch versus the punch that Shane Burgos has proven he has a weakness against. I'm going hard on Josh Emmett because I think he's going to get a round 2 knockout. I think he's going to take round 1 to feel him out. I think he's going to get the timing down. And when he finally gets that opportunity to counter, we've seen Burgos get dropped and hurt by this exact punch time and time and time again. If you eat that punch flush from a guy like Josh Emmett, You're not getting up. I got Emmett. Let's see how bad I'm doing in the comments this time. Everyone's talking about the main event. Yeah, Bufo saw it. He gets clipped. He gets clipped. Josh Emmett going to send Burgos to God to talk for a few minutes. That's about right, Muay Thai. That's what I'm banking on. Emmett's right hand is one of the best weapons in the business, and you are correct, my there, buddy. Facts. Burgos is a lock. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. All right, Beach Boss. Let's go, buddy. Head to head. This one's going to be fun. Saying it's easy money. We'll see, buddy. We will see. I'm excited about this one. And you know what? On this one, I don't think you're going to get much value taking the prop either. So I'm playing him straight just by the off chance that he, gets a couple of 10-8 rounds in there and somehow Burgos survives it or something like that. But getting that prop bet by knockout, the books know him and needs a knockout. You're not going to get much more value there. Yeah, that I just, sorry, just hit on that one. Ooh, Burgos by TKO round 3 or 30-27. Yeah, and that's, a lot of people are banking on him being able to keep the range and outdance his opponents. But, hey, if you're getting hit with 5 significant strikes a minute, Josh Emmett's piston of a right hand is going to be mixed in there a couple of those times. I'm taking it. I am taking it, my friend. Don't like going head-to-head with you, Gabe, but got to at this point. 3 units on Emmett's right hand. Let's go, buddy. Let's eat. I love it. And we got locked in at plus 125 Sunday morning. I love it. Let's go. All right, that brings us to the show, folks. Main event of the evening. Curtis Blaydes taking on Alexander Volkov. And if y'all remember, I mentioned a parlay a little earlier in the evening. We're kind of running out of options as far as what I can close that parlay with. If you haven't figured it out, I am on my boy Curtis Razor Blaydes. Now, I've already put out a couple of articles out for the people to read. I do a lot of content. I write articles for odds.com and the boys over at Sports Pub. The Pub Sports Radio, it's not gambling based, it's MMA based, but it's a lot less betting content. It's more opinionated, it's more laid back, it's more fun. My content that I do for odds.com is sports betting and gambling centric and related. I'm going to break down the stats and facts for you. Do me a favor, head on over, give those a read through for me. That just supports me directly. If my content is getting good clicks and good views, it goes a long way for me. So thank you all very much for the support. I very much appreciate it. Curtis Blaydes, 29 years old. He is 13-2. Alexander Volkov is 31 years old, 31-7. So we've got two guys that are essentially in the prime of their careers. Curtis Blaydes is only second to a man by the name of Frankie Murder. If your name is not Francis Ngannou, this man ain't losing. He is the unsung hero at heavyweight, in my opinion. If Francis Ngannou did not exist, Curtis Blaydes would be the man. And I honestly think he would probably have the strap already if it wasn't for Francis Ngannou knocking him out those 2 times. And I think one of those was an early stoppage. Remind me if I'm wrong. I didn't go back and rewatch those 2 fights because we all know how they went. But I think one of them was called a little bit early. Curtis has got a damn chin on him, dude. If you can take a punch like that from Francis Ngannou, nobody else has been able to. And Curtis wasn't out stiff like everybody else is. He got TKO'd. The referee stepped in and waved it off. But he wasn't out. So this guy has got a chin. He can tank some serious damage. And he is a monster. He trains out of Elevation Fight Team. We talked about them a little earlier. I'm a huge fan of that squad. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing in the sport right now. I think they are on the way up. And the fact that he's got, cardio for days at heavyweight at 265 pounds, this guy's got cardio for a 25-minute fight. It's unreal. You don't see that a lot, and it's very, very special. Alexander Volkov, on the flip side of this thing, only has 1 UFC loss. He's been on a very, very good run. He had that last-second knockout loss to the Black Beast. He bounced back off of that with a good, solid win over Greg Hardy, though. His level of competition so far in the UFC hasn't been spectacular. He fought Fabricio Verdum, the shell of Fabricio Verdum, when he came off. When he was USADA caught him, basically. He dragged him into deep waters and TKO'd him in the 4th round. Very impressive win, but in hindsight, I'm not sure I'm grading it with quite as much as I was back in the day. He went to a decision with Roy Nelson. He went to a split with Timothy Johnson back in the day. And then he knocked out Stefan Struve. I'm not really impressed with any of those. And then beating Greg Hardy, he was supposed to pick Greg Hardy apart on the feet. He had Derek Lewis beat by volume, just stayed away from the power hand until the literal last second of the fight, dropped his hands and got knocked out. So what that tells me is this guy can get finished. He can get sloppy, and he hasn't fought somebody on the caliber of Curtis Blaydes. He's got an incredible 76% takedown defense rating. So that's impressive, but again, he is not fighting a caliber wrestler like Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes, I said this in one of my articles, and I loved my own comparison. Curtis Blaydes is like Khabib and John Jones had a baby, and then you fed him Overeem's horse meat. Like, that's how you get Curtis Blaydes. This guy averages 6.63 takedowns per 15-minute fight, and he hits that with a phenomenal 55% accuracy. So he's constantly going for takedowns, and he does land over half of them. He averages 3.74 significant strikes a minute, which is pretty good. And then he absorbs 1.86 a minute. So he is outstriking his opponents by almost 2 significant strikes a minute. A lot of that has to do with the ground and pound. If he gets you to the mat, you can't hit back, and he just pounds on you. I talked about hellish ground and pound with Josh Emmett. Hellish ground and pound's big daddy is Curtis Blaydes ground and pound. This guy is brutal, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. He knows that he can be UFC champion. He knows that he can beat everybody in the division. And the fact that he's being held back because he got those 2 real quick flash KOs from Francis Ngannou does not sit well with him. And he's coming for blood. I am going to buy in on Curtis Blaydes when he fights anybody but Francis Ngannou. End of story. I got in early, and this is where I can kind of ease my pain a little bit missing out on that Roberts line, is that I hit my parlay with Blaydes at minus 280. That's a 2-banger, folks. I got Blaydes and Roosevelt. Parlay is minus 112, and I'm risking 2.24 units to win 2 units on that parlay. I locked that one in early. I think both guys come through. I know people are talking about Curtis Blaydes shouldn't be a minus 400 favorite, a minus 500 favorite, but honestly, I think he's perfectly valid in that range. Everyone's saying that we're disrespecting Volkov. Volkov doesn't have the kind of power it's going to take to cut off Curtis Blaydes. Volkov can't keep up with the cardio of Curtis Blaydes, and that's usually Volkov's path to victory, is being the better cardio machine here. He's being outpaced. Volkov usually has a reach advantage. Curtis Blaydes matches that 80-inch reach advantage. He's going to put that takedown defense to the test, and I guarantee you he's not going to be able to keep pace with a guy like Blaydes. I think Blaydes wins this thing by brutal, savage, third-round TKO. I don't know that there's any value on taking Curtis Blaydes inside the distance. I think it's like minus 200 or something like that. Some people ask me about taking the under 4.5 because why would the bookies set it at 4.5? I'm not touching that one. That smells trappy to me. Everybody thinks Curtis Blaydes is going to finish. I think Curtis Blaydes is going to finish. But at the same time, if Volkov has the cardio, if the takedown defense holds up, if he's able to be durable and tough and survive, maybe somehow we squeak the 5-round decision here. Again, I don't think so, but I'm not touching that total, especially when it's set at 4.5 like that. That's just madness. That's crazy talk. And how's everybody doing? What's up? Welcome to the chat. Thank you very much. Hit a parlay this weekend. Love to hear that. And Nam crushed it, man. I loved seeing that. Ooh, Gabe saying I like this fight to go the distance. All right, seeing that's what I'm talking about. That total line smells trappy to me. I don't know why they would set this kind of a fight at 4.5, but I can't lay that kind of juice on it going under. Interesting. You'll be getting a nice price. You'll get paid well if this fight goes the distance. So that's definitely worth it. Is Francis to Blaydes like Jones to DC? Basically, yes. Basically, yes. He is that poor dude that if he just didn't have that one guy there, he'd be the king. He would absolutely be the king of the hill. Well, folks, there you have it. Let's recap those picks, shall we? So far this week, and I say so far because there's plenty of coin flippy spots here I might end up adding more on. We have got Gillian Robertson at minus 125. We've got Roxanne Modafferi at minus 125. I'm rolling with the ladies this week, folks. Tecia Torres at plus 175, my big dog on the card. And then Josh Emmett at plus 115. We are betting on that missile of a right hand. Then we've got my 2-banger parlay, Curtis Blaydes taking on Roosevelt Roberts, and I think Roosevelt gets it done, even if it's a little hairy, and then Blaydes just mauls Volkov. I am expecting to cash that 2-time parlay. Thank you all so much for tuning into the show. We hit that 2-hour mark like we always seem to because I have so much fun hanging out and chatting with you all. But you know what? We at least kept the breakdowns of the fights going the way we were supposed to instead of spending a whole hour on the recap of last week. Once again, thank you all so much for joining in here. Give me a follow on Twitter at DieHardMMAPod. I tweet out all my action. So if I lock anything else up throughout the week, you will find it there. I will be tweeting it as we go. Tune in tomorrow for the live show with my boys here at Odds HQ. Subscribe already if you haven't, and then hit that like, that thumbs up button for me. Hey, we broke 700 subscribers on the Die Hard MMA YouTube channel. I appreciate that, but the goal is 1,000. I want 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, so help me out. If you haven't already, please give me a sub over there. I appreciate you all. Without you guys, there would be no Die Hard MMA podcast. Huge fan. Love every single one of you. Joey, what's up, buddy? Thanks for jumping in here. Good to see you. Thank you, Coco Bongo. Good stuff. Everybody, good night, good luck, and until I see you next time, let's roll.